Hi, this is Joe Tate, and you're listening to the Sports Fix.
Sports Fix listeners, do you tweet? So do we. So tweet with us 24/7 at the Sports Fix CLE.
Business owners and professionals, do you want to take your business, your product, your team, your event to the next level? You want to advertise right here with the Sports Fix. Our listeners are among the most loyal listeners, terrestrial or internet. The Sports Fix universe is not only the radio show, but tens of thousands of fans on Facebook and Twitter. Email me, Jerry Myers, thesportsfix@AOL.com. That's thesportsfix@AOL.com. And let me help you swing for the fences and hit it out of the park right here on the Sports Fix.
Portions of the Sports Fix brought to you by Fantasy Jocks. Looking to upgrade your league trophy? Check out fantasyjocks.com for championship belts, rings, trophies, and more.
Live in Ohio, it's time to get your fix. The Sports Fix.
There I am, off and running, baby. Welcome into the Sports Fix, Daddy. It is a Tuesday here. It is a top of the morning to you. It's a St. Patty's Day edition of the Sports Fix. That'll be the only St. Patrick's Day incorporated sound effect you'll get from me. I promise there will be no day full of bad imitations or anything of that sort, but I had to get that out of the way. Welcome in, you guys, and thank you for making us a part of your day once again here. And man, let's rock and roll. We've got a lot going on. I'm pretty stoked. My man, Dr. Football's back in the house today. It's been a few weeks since Bill's been here, and it's going to be good to catch up with him. Not just catch up, but there's a lot to talk about. I mean, not just the Browns actually doing some things. We talked a little bit yesterday as we were going off the air. Tramon Williams comes in. We'll talk about that here from the Packers as well. They bring in Starks to kind of fill that Reuben role, and they needed to add something there on the defensive line. We'll talk about that with Dr. Football and the big kind of football thing out there. Man, what's up? Chris Borland this morning, 1 year into his NFL career, calls it a day, brings up the dangers and the risks of the sport. I'm going to get into that for sure with Dr. Football here. All kinds of those long-ranging issues here today. Jeff Gorman from Indians101.com is going to join us. Not only will we do the usual Indians conversation, talk about all the things going on in spring training, but Pete Rose conversation begins anew. The fervor picks back up around there with the news that Pete Rose has officially applied for reinstatement with baseball once again. So when Jeff joins us, as a matter of fact, Jeff Gorman's going to be on the he's on deck right now, as we say. He'll be up early in the show, and we're going to dive into that, all the Indians talk. Dr. Football back after a few weeks absence here. He's in. We're talking all of the Browns free agency stuff. As I said, Chris Borland. We'll get a Tim Tebow sighting yesterday. Hey, say what you want about LG. Every once in a while when he call in, he'll talk about Tim Tebow, and people go, there goes LG about Tim Tebow again. Even last time he called a couple of weeks ago, I said that. I said, man, a couple of years ago, but I don't know about now. But hey, even Chip Kelly had some I guess curiosity at the very least as he brought in Tebow to do some tryouts there. Nothing it looks going to happen, but I got a chuckle. I said, man, I got to mention that on the show because LG always brings up Tim Tebow, and people shoot him right down now. But there you go. Chip Kelly at least had that same curiosity that LG does. So we're going to get into all of that, you guys. Cavs last night. We'll start off right off the bat here. We'll talk a little hoops here. Cavs in Miami. You know, hey, the design in the playoffs on how to beat the Cavs is out there. The good defensive teams. And Miami is a good defensive team, even with them missing players and that. Just because LeBron James left does not mean that that team forgot how to play that defense that they've played for the last few years. They're one of the better defensive squads in the NBA, and they continue to do what those teams do. They force the Cavs. I don't know if they force or if the Cavs just quickly kind of shelter back into that isolation mode. We talked about it. Even against San Antonio, it's almost fool's gold to see what Kyrie did because, when you can't stop Kyrie or LeBron, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what kind of defense you play. On those nights, the one-on-one can beat another team, but that takes that superhuman effort, which you're not always going to get. And when you don't get that, you get nights that look a little more like last night. Again, it's one loss. Cavs have still won 25 of 29, and they're still one of the most red-hot teams in the NBA. But these little outliers, every 3 or 4 games, when they play the really good defensive teams, do show some stuff that the Cavs need to continue to work on, which is why we're glad that there's still a couple weeks of regular season games left to go. We're going to talk about that right off the bat. Browns with a couple of signings. As I said, Jeff Gorman's here. Dr. Football's in the house. You guys and more. Let's do it. Welcome in, you guys, to the Sports Fix. I'm your host, the Big Daddy on the microphone. J-Rocc, Jerry Myers here each and every day at noon with you guys, live across the Sports Fix Radio Network, live on TuneIn and TuneIn's radio apps worldwide, on Spreaker and Mixler, their websites and digital and mobile apps. And, of course, we launch every day, noon Eastern, right here live on our website, thesportsfix.net. Bookmark it just in case you haven't. It's a great place to go. It's a fallback site. If any of the places that you traditionally listen to the show are down for the day, the show's always streaming live right on the sportsfix.net. You can find all of our replays, other sites that we're on, social media. Talk to us directly on the website and so much more. Bookmark it, thesportsfix.net. Hey guys, welcome in as well, all of you listening on digital delay, because there are thousands of you around the world, different time zones, different countries, all over the place, 24/7 on sites like iHeartRadio, the world's largest internet radio provider, on iTunes and Stitcher Radio, SoundCloud, CarPlay, all of those places and beyond that you guys listen to us, download us, feed us, subscribe to us, all of the stuff that you do to get your fix. Thank you guys for doing it, for being here, and as always, be the voice of the Sports Fix. You are, so use it. 216-539-7535. 216-539-7535. Facebook.com/thesportsfix. Tweet with us at The Sports Fix CLE. Email us, thesportsfix@AOL.com. Use your social media if you can't get to the phone. Facebook.com/thesportsfix. Tweet with us at The Sports Fix CLE. Email us, thesportsfix@AOL.com. Going into that, let's just jump right there with the Cavaliers last night as we kind of pick things up there. Talking about that game, Cavs fall to the Miami Heat in Miami, 106-92 last night. Dwayne Wade was the best player on the floor last night. You know what? Seriously, last night's one of those nights that when I talk about the other team dictating defensively and really setting the tone against the Cavaliers, here's a number that shows that a lot. Because as you guys know, people love to throw out the Cavaliers record when LeBron's not playing, and that's a very valid point. Although more valid earlier in the season, I think, than it is in the second half. But still, valid point. And of course, he is the main guy. You know, Kyrie Irving is emerging, but it's still LeBron James at the ace spot there. But he had his third worst plus, I guess you'd say plus minus performance. I'm not the biggest plus minus guy. I know I've talked about that before with you guys, but it was one of those games where even with LeBron on the floor, the Cavaliers were not playing effectively. The Cavs were outscored 17 points during only the minutes when LeBron was on the court. It was, like I said, the third worst performance of the team with LeBron there this season. That just shows you that it was a total defensive effort. And really, when teams like that do that, and I know, again, some people laugh and they say the Heat, I'm telling you, if you don't think that the Heat still, even in their down state with Bosch being out, and that they still are a hell of a defensive squad there, man. And then you see it when they're forcing the Cavs. And again, I go back to what I said earlier. I don't know if it's the Cavs being forced into it, or do they abandon the offense too quickly? But they're just such a different team. Hey, man, I'm preaching to the choir with you guys. They are a completely different team when they're moving the ball, when they're all... Matter of fact, I saw a great stat, and I need to get it here so I can make sure I give it to you right this morning in the Plain Dealer, right on that, about the ball movement of the Cavaliers, and it's when they play the teams that are those better defensive teams in the NBA. They're not out there getting the ball around. When you look around, the Cavaliers 5 games here that they've played against teams that are playoff caliber defenses. The Chicago, Houston, Atlanta last night, and the 2 losses to Indiana. Those are all of the losses, by the way, since the Cavs made those trades. It's not exactly a lot, but those are all the good defensive teams. Think about it. Every one of those teams I listed is upper half of the league in points allowed, and a couple of them are in the top 10 of the league there. And against those teams, that's where the Cavaliers have 5 of their worst assist totals. And not only that, but every one of them, it's under their season average. They average 21.5 assists a game for the season against those teams in those losses right there since back in January. Indiana twice, Chicago, Houston, Atlanta, and last night at Miami. The highest number was 18. They're all under their season average. It really speaks to how those teams have done a good job of stopping the Cavaliers' ball movement and forcing it down to one-on-ones with LeBron and with Kyrie. Hey, even with Kyrie doing the 57, like I said, against San Antonio, when we were having fun the next day, because a game like that, you just have to enjoy the performance, but it was otherworldly. That's not worldly. That's not just a term that you use. It's the truth. It's because that was something that you're not going to see all the time, and that can't be stopped. That great, not just great effort, but when everything's dropping and just when it's working like that, that can't be controlled by either team, by the offensive or the defensive team. That's just heat check, keep it going, one man doing an absolutely amazing performance. But it was still all isolation. We talked about that the next day. It was still all one-on-one plays. It was all dribble drives. It was all there was little to no ball movement. And against San Antonio, that's a recipe for losing. And yet the Cavs, because of that unworldly performance and then what they got from the rest of the team as well, they were able to get that victory, aided by the free throws at the end, whatever. They got the victory, but that's not your win day in and day out in the playoffs formula. And that's what those teams are doing. They break the Cavs down to one-on-one. And part of that is belief and trust in each other. It's easy to feel good after blowouts and after going on these long streaks. There's still going to come moments. These guys still deep down in the clutch. It's one thing to, in the middle of a regular season game, have confidence to pass the ball to this guy or that guy and trust in your teammates. But those issues come out when you play the better teams, when guys go one-on-one, where they have to know that, have that trust, and that comes with being in the situations and coming through. It'll come as they win games like they did in San Antonio. Trust me, this is in no way a burial of the Cavaliers at all. Great point, Bruce. We talked about it yesterday. Did I not put the Maloik on them, by the way? I told you after I said that yesterday they were going to lose for sure. But it was the 4th of this road trip, back-to-back. Trust me, I get all of that. But, still, these are issues that are definitely going to be there. And that's the thing. And those trust issues will come through. The more they make the pass, the extra pass in the playoffs against Atlanta, against Chicago, and things like that, and the guys make the shots, the more that trust continues to build. Because, like I said, it's one thing to build. If it was all about building it during the regular season, those 2009, 2010, those Cavs teams would have won championships too, because they had the chemistry and the trust during the regular season. But that all breaks down when you get into the playoffs, and all of a sudden they're going 5-on-1 with LeBron, and he doesn't get any help across the board. We know what happened before. Point is that's how a great regular season is separated from a great postseason. So I like seeing the Cavs go through what they did last night, because we need that. You can't roll all the way into the playoffs. Like, that's one of the problems with those Cavs teams from a couple years ago. If you roll so hot into the playoffs, it just becomes so hard to see where you still need work and to stay focused on that. We've seen it before, and I'm all about this team continuing to struggle from time to time. Just, you win a couple, you stub your toe. That keeps you sharp. That keeps you working. It keeps you focused on your weaknesses, because this Cavs team learns from their mistakes. That's what I love about them. They appear to learn from their mistakes. They'll come back from a bad performance and bounce right back and attack the areas that they were bad. They also got pounded on the rebounds over the last 2 games, even against Orlando. I expect to see that be a concerted effort coming out. So as long as they continue to stub their toe along the way, they'll continue to work on things. That's a good sign, you guys. That is a good sign. Kevin Love's been out for a couple of days resting his back because, as David Blatt said, you get the rest now while we can, because pretty soon it's time to start moving, and there's a game every other day, and we're in the playoffs for 2 months. So, and you know what? LeBron had to play last night. I was really shocked, except once I heard that Love was out, I said, man, I'm pretty sure LeBron will try to push it. He had the Miami factor, but also the fact that both of those guys would have been out there, and it would have really put the Cavs back against the wall. Not that it worked out much better. I mean, really, last night you could see the Cavs were – They were pretty much done from bell to bell in that one. I mean, you can see the tiredness in the team from the beginning of that one to the end. I think there's a 20-point deficit or close to it there at some point in the first half, and you could just see it was just a lackadaisical effort. But they still handled the Texas half of the trip, took care of their business heading into Orlando. Yeah, you stumble coming out of it, but you get to come back home here. You've got a couple of games coming up here at home this week. Get yourself rolling a bit, as you've got, hey, a couple more too, talking about these challenges. You've got Brooklyn, who's on the outside looking in, and they're fading away now here coming up tomorrow. But then guess what? Here come the Pacers again on a Friday. The Pacers on a Friday night hasn't worked out too well for the Cavs the last couple of times they've done it. But if the season ended today, that's the team the Cavaliers would face in the first round of the playoffs. At least, unless something changed in the standings last night, I do believe it would be Indiana that the Cavs would play in the first round of the playoffs. So there you go. Milwaukee right there as well. That's next coming up over the weekend. You've got Memphis. You go to Brooklyn. So they keep coming, and I like that. That's what I was mentioning the other day when Eddie Jansen and I were talking about the schedule, and he was looking past some of the bottom seeded teams here, and I said, no, to me those teams are all right there too, because they're fighting. The Cavs are going to the playoffs. They're not. So those are the kind of challenges you want, because that's what gets you sharp. I always worry, and that's why I kept worrying in early February about the Cavs peaking too early, because we've seen that happen before. Not just here, other great teams, but we've seen it here specifically, where you just go, man, this team's hitting on all cylinders, but they do it just a bit too early in the season or whatnot. And matchups too. Bruce, a great point. You know, it wasn't about peaking early when you ran into the Orlando Magic back in 2009. That was, you had a team built to grind it out in the trenches with Boston, and then boom, you hit that team that was just shooting from every spot on the court in Orlando. And I remember that series. That series was so baffling to me, because the Cavs rolled up in every game. Every game they'd roll up a double-digit lead, and you go, okay, Cavs have righted the ship here, and then they'd give it all back. They got shot out of the gym time and time again, and that series really changed the course of things, because it really kind of set the ball in motion for, you know, LeBron leaving and all the things that we went through to get back here. And that's Bruce's great point. Indiana is like that. That's a team where the matchups just hit in the favor of Indiana. And you've really got to give credit to what the Pacers have done, seriously, to be able to be where they're at here. When you look at what happened, they lost, well, maybe it was addition by subtraction with Stevenson, but you lose Paul George and all of that stuff, man, and they're still a good team there, and they're a team that's given the Cavs fits here, even recently, as I said, the last couple of times. So a couple of good ones here at home for the Cavs. It's not the end of the world, but last night definitely points out some of those things, and as I said, I'd really like that to happen a few more times. Some people go, well, I'd rather win them all. That's great. Not me. I want to keep stubbing our toe every once in a way, because it keeps you focused. Think about your own life. If you're walking around in the house and you stub your toe, you start paying attention around every corner. Same thing for the Cavs there. That keeps them sharp, that keeps them humming, and gets them ready to head into the playoffs. So last night, a down effort for the Cavs, but they still head home, taking 3 out of the 4 there, sweeping the Texas trip, and you still got to feel good about that. As I said yesterday, I'll just change the words. I said 4-4, but if you'd have took this, but when they headed out last week, if you'd have said, hey, they'll go 3-4, they'll drop the getaway game to Miami at the end of it, are you happy with that? Absolutely. So a lot of people wouldn't have seen that coming. I'll take it where it is. As I said, Cavs off for a day, and then they've got Brooklyn back at home tomorrow, so we'll talk some more about that. Eddie Jansen from More Than a Fan Cleveland, he's going to join us later on in the week as well. We'll talk about that. Talking hoops, March, you know what? We're going to take a break and get Jeff Gorman in. But March Madness, by the way, begins tonight as the first play-in game gets going for the tournament. But how about this? March Madness begins with us as well, the Bracket Challenge. You guys, I want to drop it real quick as we get ready to head to the break. People have been signing up for the last few days. It's very easy. There's a Cleveland Sports prize pack on the line. Nothing big and spectacular, but I've got a couple of copies of Vince McKee's latest books, Cleveland's Finest, LeBron James, Redemption of the King, coming your way, as well as a few other miscellaneous goodies that I'm going to throw into this Cleveland Sports prize pack. It goes to the winner of our bracket challenge. While you're filling out your brackets this week, add one to us. It's free. It's easy. Jump in. We'll be talking about it on the air throughout the next couple of weeks of the tournament. All you have to do if you want to play, go to ESPN.com. Many of you use their tournament challenge as it is. It's a very easy. We use it because they do all the work for us. Go there. Go into their tournament challenge. They have groups. Just find The Sports Fix. The group is The Sports Fix and drop your entry. Or we have the direct links on all of our social media, and we're doing it once or twice a day up until Thursday morning when the tournament starts. You can just click the link and go jump in, register for the group, fill out your bracket, boom, you're in. And we'll be off and running with this year's bracket challenge. I'll tell you more about it again all the way up until the games tip off. You can get your bracket literally in up until tip off of the first game. Remember, the play-in games don't count when it comes to getting your brackets in. It's only once they start the actual round of 64 come Thursday. So search for it on the tournament challenge on ESPN.com. Find The Sports Fix. Drop your entry into our group. Look forward to playing with each and every one of you guys. Of course, I won't be giving away any prize pack because I'm just going to win the whole thing. And by the way, if that is the case, whoever finishes second to yours truly is the person that wins the prize pack. Somebody's still going to win no matter what. But I'm a competitive son of a gun too. So we'll see what happens. And looking forward to that. Let's take a break, you guys. We'll talk more about things like this. Got to get into a lot with the Browns, Dr. Football coming up later. But let's talk Tribe. And I want to hit the Pete Rose thing with you guys and with Jeff Gorman because it's out there in the news once again. Talk some baseball next. Jeff Gorman from Indians101.com. He's here every Tuesday. He's here today. We'll talk Tribe. We'll talk Pete Rose, spring training, and more. Dr. Football still to come later in the show and so much more. Don't go anywhere. We've just got rolling with today's edition of the Sports Fix.
The Sports Fix, the show that asks the question,
what you talking about, Lou? What you talking about, Lou? What you talking about? What you talking about? What you talking about, Lou? What you talking about? What you talking about, Lou? What you talking about? What you talking about, Lou?
We'll be right back.
Hey guys, before we go to the break, I want to talk to you a little bit again about our good friends at Harry Buffalo North Olmsted, the UFC, the Ultimate Fighting Championships, some of the hottest fights in the world today. Each and every one of their huge events, Harry Buffalo is one of the few places in Northeast Ohio you can go there and watch each and every UFC fight at the Harry Buffalo. And let me tell you, I've been there. The people are out the door. They are to the rafters. It is one of the craziest environments for some UFC fights. Wing Mondays, they've got great deals on wings and drinks, and every day of the week there's a different special, a different deal. And don't forget the Bison Burger, the unbelievable. It is the combination of a fantastic burger and eating healthy combined into one unbelievable sandwich. You have got to get a Bison Burger while you're there. So whatever you're looking for, whatever day of the week, Monday through Friday, Saturday, Sundays, there's something for you just outside Great Northern Mall. Check them out today. Harry Buffalo, join the herd.
Sports Fix listeners, like us on Facebook today. Facebook.com/The Sports Fix.
I'm Little Teapot, short and stout.
Here is my handle and here is my spout.
No, Dad, like this. When I get all steamed up, then I shout, tip me over and pour me out.
This is WWE superstar Roman Reigns. The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today.
Visit fatherhood.gov, brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Fantasy sports lovers, you put so much time, hard work, and effort into playing week to week that it quickly stops being a fantasy and starts getting real. And when the smoke clears, you want to show off those victories with a real prize.
I mean, a really real prize.
Nobody does that like Fantasy Jocks. The crew over at Fantasy Jocks have beautiful, high-quality, and heavy-duty championship belts, rings, trophies, and so much more for all your fantasy sports needs. There's literally only one place to go. FantasyJocks.com. No football? No problem at Harry Buffalo North Olmsted. The excitement never stops. Every day of the week brings a different set of food and amazing drink specials. Fight fans, Harry Buffalo North Olmsted is the home for every UFC pay-per-view live on the big screens. And let's not forget their mouth-watering trademark, the Bison Burger. Nobody does bison like Harry Buffalo. The perfect combination of healthy and delicious. What are you waiting for? Get to Harry Buffalo, just outside Great Northern Mall today. Harry Buffalo. Join the herd.
Hello, Cleveland. This is WWE Hall of Famer Mick Foley, and you are listening to the Sports Fix. Yeah.
Indian fever is catching fire with everyone. Indian fever, you can be part of the fun. You're the winner at every game. That's where the excitement begins. So catch Indian fever, be a believer with the Cleveland Indians.
Welcome back to the Sports Fix. See, you ever notice that the Indians, they weren't just trying to attract you to the ballpark or come up with a nifty song. They were making you feel good about yourself. Everybody's a winner at the ballpark, man. See, it's all about good, positive self-esteem here, man. I'm feeling good. Love it. Every time I hear that little gets me going because I know we're talking some Tribe baseball. We're back here on the Sports Fix. Welcoming you guys. J-Rocc here. Jeff Gorman from Indians101.com is going to join us here. We'll talk some Tribe. Going to talk all kinds of spring training notes. Gavin Floyd officially out. He had his surgery here. I know he was looking for a second opinion. Pete Rose, he is looking for a second opinion. He is still looking to get back in, formally applying once again for reinstatement. We'll talk about that here with Jeff Gorman. The Tribe battles and the pitching rotation continues and more. Corey Kluber on the mound today for the Tribe. Of course, he is a big surprise here. He's going to start opening day for the Indians. Terry Francona went out on a limb yesterday with that one and let people know. So if you had the field in the office pool for who was going to start the first game for the Indians, not only do you lose, but you're a doofus because that was about the most unsurprising decision of the recent Indians announcements. But Corey Kluber on the mound today. We'll pick up there. Let's talk about it. You guys, Facebook and Twitter, facebook.com/thesportsfix. Tweet with us at the Sports Fix CLE. You can't use the phones because that's where Jeff Gorman lurks right now. Let's go to the phones. Jeff Gorman, writer for Indians101.com, and he's here every Tuesday on the Fix. Jeff, how you doing, my man?
I'm doing great. I'm lurking, and I'm ready to strike.
I thought you would like that. I thought you would like that. You're looming, lurking on the phone lines, man. How you doing today? How's your week been, my friend?
It's been great. There's all sorts of good stuff happening. The sun is shining, and it's pretty cold, but that's all right. But, it's St. Patrick's Day for those of you who are into that. And, the March Madness starts tonight, too. So there's a lot of reasons to celebrate and a lot of reasons to get out of the house and do something fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Although I remind you, safety, the name of the game, all the foolishness gets to me. It's like, come on, man, let's have fun, but let's keep it safe, man, and all of that. But yeah, St. Patrick's Day edition of the Sports Fix, man. Where you want to roll here? Talking some Tribe. We can talk any direction of things you want. Let's look a little bit at the Indians pitching as things have changed since the last time we talked. We were sitting at the front end of Gavin Floyd going out. Now, after seeking a second opinion, he's out. He had his surgery. He's definitely, I would say, anything sooner than next season is probably an optimistic hope for him. So, you know what? No harm, no foul, nothing lost. Now, opportunity awaits. I was a little disappointed. Mentioned it last week at the first couple of appearances of Danny Salazar since then because he's a little shaky, although I hear he did well in a simulated appearance. But I like some things. I thought Bruce Chen showed a little bit of that if you need him, he's there. What you've had in him in the past there, and Markham looked good yesterday too. A guy that maybe if he doesn't hang on here, he definitely may do what Aaron Harang did and play himself onto somebody. I think maybe even more than Chen, Sean Markham may play himself onto somebody's radar if it's not with the Indians, based on the early results we've seen.
That's right. So it's disappointing that, Gavin Floyd got hurt. He's going to get paid. Really, the only thing that's been lost is $4 million of the Indians' money. So, but unfortunately, that didn't really torpedo the Indians' hopes, or now we're in big trouble, because they really amassed a lot of starting pitching depth.
Yes.
Although things would be better if we did have a really good, healthy Gavin Floyd out there in the number 3 spot, winning maybe 12, 14 games. That would really help things out. But, I think we're going to be okay. And I think really the key is Trevor Bauer stepping up and being a solid number 3. And I think that he's probably ready to do that. He's looked pretty good so far in spring, and I think he knows what he needs to do. I think he knows that, now's the time. There's no really potential anymore. This is his year to be, a solid, reliable starter, one of the better ones. And I think that, he's going to do that. And then you start looking at 4 and 5 after that.
You know what? Let me jump in.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, no, because right where you're at, I've actually got a tweak on what you said that may be a little bit different than the way most people are looking at it, because I think everybody is doing what you just did. They're going, all right, you got Corey Kluber, then Carlos Carrasco, Trevor Bauer's number 3, and everybody else is fighting for 4 and 5. I said yesterday, number 1, I think that everybody's fighting for one spot. I believe TJ House is as close to locked into a spot as there can be at this point, but I'd flip-flop those last 2 names. What about putting House in the middle of that lineup? Because you break it up by throwing in the opposite arm. You've got the different style there. You've got, and then Bauer becomes a number 4, and if he continues to do, especially what you projected, it keeps that same strength and depth at the back end of the rotation, because now Bauer's coming up against those 4th and 5th starters from other teams, and your matchups start to get a lot juicier there in your favor. But I think that even is not just a crazy, well, only Jerry's thinking of it. I think that may be in the Indians' thought process. Don't count out TJ House ending up in the 3rd spot in that rotation.
It's really actually a good idea. And again, I think, like you said, I think that makes really sense on a lot of levels, especially because, you could put him as the lefty after those first 2 right-handers, Kluber and Carrasco, and that really can prevent some of the opposing, hitters from getting into a groove, getting 3 days in a row in there, and,
exactly.
Kind of breaks things up. You get some people out of the lineup, other people have to come into the lineup. It really, disjoints things a little bit, so they don't have the same guys out there 3 days in a row and really starting to get into a groove. And, like I said, giving them a little bit of a different twist. And, yeah, I think Bauer as a number 4 starter would look really good. And the good news is that it really seems like what House was able to do last year really wasn't the fluke so far. I mean, so far he's looking really well. And he's, I think, like you said, I think he's pretty much ready to lock up one of these spots. And it's really amazing, because I think last year when we were talking about who was going to make the rotation, I don't think any of us had even heard of TJ House. I know I didn't. I mean, he came up during the season, and I hadn't even heard of him before. Look how reliable he's been.
No, absolutely. He I won't say came out of nowhere, but he definitely came on faster than some people saw. And I'll tell you what, just thinking about that, like you said, you've got that. You stop teams from getting comfortable in a series. You're almost always guaranteed in any given series to have a lefty in there in your mix. I just kind of like that. And I'm telling you, man, something in my gut says don't count beyond that because of the way the rotation could fall out behind that. Of course, I got no problem with Bauer coming in at 3rd too. But the key with House, Mike Brandenberry hit it the other day, and I think this is another. This is why, you guys, seriously, this is why the guys over at DidTheTribeWinLastNight.com are just one of my favorites. It's why Mike's on the show all the time, because they really do, have a great perspective on things. Is the key with him is making sure for his success that the defense really is improved this year, because Mike he's not sold. And him and I have had off-the-air discussions about this too. He's just not sold on this completely revamped Indians defense and all the problems are solved. He thinks they'll be moderately better at a position or two, and they're still going to have a lot of the same issues that they had last year. I don't go as far into the woe is us end that he does. I don't think that there are a bunch of gold glovers out there either, but I think that what we saw in the second half is a lot closer to what we'll see. But it has to be for a guy like House, because that's one of the guys that really on this staff, I think the only one, depending on who ends up with the job, that's not looking to mow guys over and strike guys out, that does get a lot of ground balls and a lot of balls that are put into play because, as Mike brought up, an artificial inflation last year of how the defense improved was the fact that the power pitching improved in the second half. So you had more strikeouts, so you theoretically had less balls put into play, which also artificially pumps up your defense a little bit because there's less chances to make errors. So when you've got a guy that is more of a ground ball guy like House, he's got to make sure that that defense behind him is solid because he could get into trouble. And it did work in the second half. That's why it played into him having the second half that he did. So that's going to be a key there. Remember, I mean, other than that, though, look at the rest of them. The rest, you got power arms throughout the rest of your guys, you know? So that's something as well that plays your pitching now into the strengths and weaknesses of your defense. But keep that in mind too, because the more they put it on the ground with a guy like House, the more, error opportunities there are. So hopefully that defense is improved. What do you think about that, by the way? Because like I said, Mike is not sold at all that the defense is just going to be completely flipped around. I think it's going to be at least more than adequate this season, but who knows, man? We could start the season, they could start booting balls around, and Mike could start sending me text messages that just go, do you need me to say I told you so?
Right. I think that really the thing about defense and about the bullpen of any team is you really never know what you're going to get until they actually go out there and play, because that's such a variable from year to year, and that's one of the things that anything can happen that you can't really plan on as far as, the way you look at, hitter statistics and pitcher statistics. I think that just on paper, the way we look at it, we say, yeah, I think that Jose Ramirez should be able to do better at shortstop than as Struble did. I think that, that Carlos Santana, with a full, just starting the year at first base and being settled there, I think he's going to do a lot better. He was very good in the second half of the year defensively, so I think he should be pretty solid over there. You'd like to think Lonnie Chisenhall will improve a little bit. And you'd like to think that Yan Gomes won't have all the defensive problems that he had at the beginning of last year. So I think that on paper, it looks like we should have a little bit of a better defense, but really you never can tell because, who foresaw the problems last year? Sometimes they just pop up and then you're stuck with them and you got to get your way out of the quicksand.
Well, you know what? Something though on there, and I again, I'm more towards you than Mike, but something else that he pointed out that a lot of people don't look at is when you look at was last season an outlier is when you go back through 2008. I believe Mike said, and I could be wrong, but if you guys are listening and if I'm wrong, remind me, but I think he said the best the Indians defense have finished since 2008 was 24th, I believe, which is still bottom third of the league. So even then, it does go to show that wasn't something that came out of the blue, except perhaps the bottom dropped out just a little bit to make it appear more amplified than it was. But they were still looming that whole time in that area. And, some of that plays in. It's not like the outfields the last 6-7 years have had a ton of range out there. And that's another thing, too. Mike is, very much, and I agree, Michael Bourne has been poor defensively at best for the Indians out there. But as much as people are hopeful about his legs being rejuvenated on the offensive end, I've got to think he's not going to be out there catching everything, 300 feet in each direction of him. But you know what I mean? He'll still, I think, maybe be a little more adequate. But again, we have to see it before, it's easy to be hopeful and optimistic. And his health too. What have you been, how are you feeling here looking at what Bourne's continue to do? Not just putting the bat on the ball, but just the way he looks physically, moving around. He definitely looks like a better version of Michael Bourne than we've had so far in Cleveland.
Well, I think he looks really good, and I'd love to just sort of bottle him up for another 3 weeks and just make sure that he starts the regular season this way.
Wrap him in bubble wrap and get him to opening day, Let's just put him on the shelf now.
Right, a guy who really relies on his legs offensively and defensively, and, with all the hamstring problems he's had, it's really a different team when you've got a healthy Michael Bourne at the top. Like, everything works really well. When he's injured and he's out, you know, it's so hard to put other people into that role, not just as a center fielder, but as a leadoff hitter. So I think that he's really, you know, a key, and we talk about different people who are keys. You know, Michael Bourne is really one of the main keys to this team, just getting the entire offense working well. So we just have to hope that, you know, he'll be able to hold up for most, if not all, of the year, because then, you know, I think we'll have a chance. If he's out for an extended period of time this year, then our offense is in a little bit of trouble, if not more than a little bit of trouble.
I agree with you, you know, and that's why spring is always fool's gold. You can't go crazy. You're looking at certain statistics and that's what I mean when I say just the eye test with him, just looking at him. Although you like to see games where he beats out infield hits and stuff like that. He's got that little bit of, you know, feeling good about himself. And when you're not feeling good, you're not playing good. And it's easy to go, yeah, this guy, that guy, Nick Swisher. I get on guys, you get on guys. We all do it, and sometimes it's more fair than it is others. But, you know, when a guy's not right, he's not right, no matter what. And that's why I said, if nothing else, this looks like staying healthy. He'll at least be the best version of Michael Bourne that we've had. Now, will he be the guy he was when he was really looked at as being, wow, but this guy may go a lot of places where it kind of fell off there, but can he get back there? I don't know. But I think we've got a better version than the one we've had so far. And he's key, like you said, him and Moss. Mike and I were talking about it last week. I mean, that to me is just key to this offense, and it really does bring in all kinds of different dynamics there with what you can do with the lineup, where you can put guys, and it really does. Those two, the keys to making this team, instead of a feast or famine offense, a much more consistent offense, because that's been the thing. You know, we talk about it to death, Jeff. You can average 5 runs a game all you want. Doesn't matter if 10 of them come on Tuesday and 2 of them come on Wednesday.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, this is a team that, you know, it has depth, but really this team can't really survive too much without, you know, with injuries to their starting players. And that's just because of the financial realities of the team. You know, the Indians have picked these players, they've paid them this amount of money, and there isn't any more money out there. So they better be out there every day. And I think that's one of the biggest storylines of the entire spring as we come down to the last week or two of the spring is, can everybody get healthy by opening day so that we can start off as right as we can as far as getting this cast of characters to play together and build up that teamwork and camaraderie and, you know, health, and, you know, hopefully get this team off to a strong start, which is really important if this team wants to get where they want to go.
I'll tell you what, talking about where they're going and where they're getting, big surprise yesterday. Corey Kluber announced as the Indians' opening day starter. We'll get a chance to see him go out here today as he's starting to get himself into opening day mode for sure. And how are you feeling? I mean, again, he's somebody who you go, okay, just wrap him up. There's several guys that fit into that category. Let's just wrap them up and get them to opening day. But looking at him, looking at Carrasco, looking at the other guys in the pitching here, we talked about some of the lesser names. How are you feeling about some of the guys near the top of the rotation, too?
I feel real good because Carrasco is looking very good, and, you know, a key is having a player like him for the entire season, the way he was in the last couple months. That will really, really be helpful. Even if Kluber takes a slight half step back, I mean, I hope he doesn't, but, you know, we're kind of spoiled that he won the Cy Young. I'd love for him to go out and do it again, you know, or come close. But, you know, even if, I think people feel good enough about Corey Kluber that even if he's not as dominant as he was last year, you know, he's still going to be very, very good. Definitely good enough to be a number one starter. But who knows? Maybe he'll be just as dominant, and he'll be maybe the best pitcher in the league again, which will really be helpful, especially if Carrasco can do what he did. And then it's going to be interesting to see. We talked about Danny Salazar before. You know, he really only has a couple of weeks left to kind of put things back together, because he can definitely be sent out to the minors just like he was last year, because I think the Indians have enough to, because like you said, it looks like we really only need a fifth starter behind Bowe and House, and I think somebody, even if it is Sean Markham or Josh Tomlin, might sneak in and get that last spot. So there's really a lot of people out there, and, you know, McAllister's done well, but he can definitely go to the bullpen since they can't send him to the minors. So there's really a lot of talent there, and I think that, you know, overall it stacks up pretty good as long as people stay healthy and, you know, they're really kind of going nice and easy with Kluber, not throwing him out there too much in front of live pitching. And, of course, we can see him today. That game's going to be on TV for all the St. Patrick's Day revelers out there.
Man, you hit right on where I was going to go. As I had my words coming out of my mouth, you go, and Danny Salazar, because I was going to say, what do you think here? Your opinions. But looking at that, and the fact that the one thing you didn't mention is that the Tribe doesn't need a fifth starter. I believe it's like 12 days into the season before they need one, and they only need a fifth starter, I think, once in the first couple of weeks, 3 weeks or something, first 21 days or something like that. So I honestly believe Danny Salazar starts the season at AAA. I think that the Indians would want him to go get 1 or 2 starts in, full starts down there at AAA, if nothing else, to keep him from sitting too long at the start of the season. And then, hey, go down there, show us that you're ready. We'll bring you up when we need a fifth starter, and then maybe he can slide his way in there. But I got to tell you, especially looking with some of the injuries and whether, looking at now with Walters and Swisher and the likelihood of multiple position players not being available for opening day, I think the likelihood is really increased that the Indians go protective with the position players. And I think Danny Salazar, especially because, like you said, you've got McAllister, who you can start out in the pen, but he can save the day if you need him there in the early part of the season. I think Danny Salazar breaks camp at AAA. What about you?
I think you're right. I mean, he does have a little bit of time to turn things around, but like you said, there's not going to be a whole lot of need for a fifth starter early on, and maybe that spot might even go to Sean Markham simply because he has the temperament to, be able to sit around for a while and be able to get that spot start without being somebody who really needs a whole lot of work in order to get some consistency. But, they could certainly just have that be Zach McAllister. He's going to be the long man anyway out of the bullpen. You just have to hope that, that one of the starters doesn't really get bombed out in the first couple innings and they need him. But I think there's enough, bodies in the bullpen because, Francona likes to have a nice, thick bullpen. I think that could work. And again, you really want Salazar to, get his head and get his control on straight before you throw him up against Major League pitching. And, unfortunately for him, like you said, he might end up being ticketed for Columbus unless he has a dramatic turnaround the next couple weeks.
I mean, just listening to Terry Francona, and again, Danny Salazar's a young guy with plenty of time to get himself going. But just listening to Terry Francona, I believe that that's kind of the way the organization is leaning, unless, he showed up tomorrow and just all of a sudden turned things around. Because, Terry Francona mentioned so many things that they want Salazar to keep working on here before they commit to getting into the season here. And it's a laundry list, and it's stuff that's a part of why I could see, hey, go to AAA, get on the mound a couple of times. We don't care if you win or lose or any of that stuff. We want you working on these things. He mentioned, like you use that word, consistency. They want him to work on his pacing. They want him to work on his breaking ball was something that Terry Francona mentioned a ton, is something that concerns them because there's a difference between throwing an off-speed pitch and throwing an off-speed pitch. And those are all things that they want him to work on. And the line I saw that really says, they're thinking this way is that he mentioned that he doesn't even have a lot of experience as far as Salazar pitching in the minor leagues. As we know, he kind of rocketed his way into prominence here in that pennant race 2 years ago with the Indians, and then last year, minimal experience and exposure there before being on the major league squad as well. So I think those are all reasons, and the fact that they've got the luxury of some depth, why Danny Salazar perhaps ends up spending the first few weeks of the season at AAA. And if he can show the Indians, hey, here's you gave me A, B, C, and D, and I'm working on it, here we go, then they bring him up. But I also just think it's better because if you don't need a fifth starter for a couple of weeks, then he's just going to be a cheerleader for the first couple weeks of the season, and let him get out there and get into it every fifth day groove at AAA. Let him get rolling. Think about it. If you go the first couple weeks, he could get 2-3 starts in at AAA before you need him up there, and that could be all he needs to get himself into regular season mode.
Right, and he'll be consistent as far as how many days he goes between starts, too. That way he's not sitting for 6-7 days. If he goes down to Columbus, he'll be out there every fifth day, and then he'll be in a groove when it's time to bring him up. And hopefully that'll be what happens. So, like you said, he did skip a few steps with his development, and now that they have that kind of depth, they can go back and sort of fill in those blanks. Unfortunately, the Indians, they're in a position where they've got enough talent that they can be the kind of team that uses spring training to just sort of get guys ready to go, rather than make a lot of big decisions about who's good and who's bad, and then you have people who have a few flaws who are possibly going for a spot, and then you can say, well, which of these flawed people are we going to take? If Salazar's having some problems, you've got other guys who really aren't having too many problems who could take that spot, even if it's just for a month or so.
Oh, brother, decisions based on need are never successful in sports. When you draft based on
life.
Or when in general, when you make that, when you buy that car because you have to have a car, odds are it's going to break down. You know what I mean? Like because you didn't look at it, you didn't vet it, you didn't do everything, you rushed into it. Yeah, that's my point. Is when you're pushed into a decision, you never give the full recourse as much as when you've got the luxury and the time of going ahead. So yeah, maybe they ease the pedal off of that a little bit. Jeff Gorman from Indians101.com joining us here on the Sports Fix, talking some Tribe. Of course, they continue. And then tomorrow, hey, first off day of the spring. We said it at the beginning. Yeah. They had about 3 weeks straight with which is cool. That's what you want if you're in spring training. Nobody wants to be lollygagging around Arizona, man. Let's play it's spring training baseball, not the most strenuous activity in the world. So let's get out there and play some ball. Let's play two, and they'll get a day off tomorrow. Corey Kluber on the mound today. But Jeff, I want to go a little national here, segue off of the Indians. And I mentioned in the news here, Pete Rose, and it's a subject that comes up from time to time, of course, but officially now applying for reinstatement once again with the new commissioner of Major League Baseball. Commissioner Rob Manfred said that he is going to look over everything from the initial investigation and all of that stuff, and then he will sit down with Pete Rose. He will let Pete Rose say his piece and then make a decision here. Of course, Pete Rose on the verge of, I believe, his 74th birthday coming up just around the start of the baseball season. And before we go anywhere else, what is your stance in general on Pete Rose? I know a lot of people are one way or the other, and the steroid thing just makes it even murkier. And then guys like Jonathan Knight say, hey, no, you can't judge it by the best of the worst. You can't go, well, at least he didn't do this, he did this. And it's still, some people say no way. Some people say if you're going to let the steroid guys in, you got to let Pete Rose in. What say you about Pete Rose?
Well, I'm a big Pete Rose fan ever since I was a little kid. In fact, me and my friends who liked baseball, we would call diving head first into a base, we'd call that a Pete Rose dive. I mean, all of that stuff as a little kid. So I love how he played the game and everything, and just what he accomplished on the field is obviously untouchable. And, I think that he really has paid for his sins. Ironically enough, if he had never become a manager, he would definitely be in the Hall of Fame because he would just be a former player, and there we go. He had a great career, and then he stopped. But the fact that he became a manager and then had this whole gambling situation, so you could really separate even the player from the manager, I think. But I think that, he did wrong, and he admitted it, and he apologized, and he really has, kind of paid for it for decades, really. I don't think he necessarily has to have a lifetime ban, or it doesn't really make if things are going to happen for him down the road where he eventually gets into the Hall of Fame, it doesn't really make sense to do it 25, 30 years after he dies. I think that now is really the time. I think that the fact that he's still alive, he's still somewhat healthy, I think it would really be because America always loves second chances and forgiveness, and we've forgiven a lot more famous people for a lot worse. And so I think that now is definitely the time for them to go ahead and let Pete Rose into the Hall of Fame.
All right, let's see. Where do I start here? I mean, no, because I get it. I get it from both sides. I totally do. And let me see if I can break my kind of thoughts on this down. Pete Rose, obviously, forget the baseball side because that's a no-brainer. I mean, that's Charlie Hustle. I'm like you. I definitely grew up with my dad telling me, about Charlie Hustle and all of that. And then we had a good perception of him anyway because he was Cincinnati and that was closer. So regionally, you got a little more. But, he was mostly a manager during my lifetime. Here's the thing. Like, you talk about gambling and, what he did. Okay, Shoeless Joe Jackson. not in the Hall of Fame. Never will be in the Hall of Fame because of the whole Black Sox 9 and all of that stuff that happened back in the World Series back in the early part of the 1900s. And that's such a big thing, such a big scandal in baseball history. And those guys threw games. Here's my thing with Pete Rose. As much as I go, okay, and then there's a flip side, because I do believe that we have to look at the people that you're letting in now and all the steroids and stuff. But keeping that out, looking at Pete Rose first, he bet on games of the team that he managed. So part of me has always made the argument that, well, he always bet on his team to win. But here's my thing.
Right.
Nobody knows that. Nobody can verify any of that for sure, because the only person that can verify that is Pete Rose. Nobody else is said anything. So you're taking his word for it that that's all he ever did was bet on his own team. And there is such a place there. I mean, think about it, because at that point, you're going to let Pete Rose in. You might as well let a lot of other people in too, because, and I'll start with Shoeless Joe Jackson, because you can't prove that Shoeless Joe Jackson threw one of those games. He swore until the day he died that he did not throw those games, that he decided not to, and that he double-crossed the ball players. But guess what? He still agreed to take the money. He still was in on it no matter what, but you can't prove it. So if you can't prove it for him, you can't prove it for Pete Rose. And then I can flip to this argument for Pete Rose. This is why it's more than just a two-pronged argument. There's so many different prongs. How about a guy like Ty Cobb? Ty Cobb, no-brainer, to baseball people, first ballot, original Hall of Famer from the first class, all of that stuff. But he bet on the game during the game. There's stories out there. Of course, now they're second and third hand party stories. And matter of fact, one of them involved Tris Speaker, I believe, but where they were accused of rigging games and betting on the games and winning money by basically, we're going to throw Tuesday's game and you're going to throw Wednesday's game and we're going to cash in on the sucker gamblers and all that stuff. And those things get washed under the rug. And now Ty Cobb is this, famous legend of this bad drinking, nasty attitude ball player that was, but I mean, besides the fact that he was a nasty individual, but that's actually betting on the game, tanking games and losing. You know what I mean? I mean, think about that. Matter of fact, here we go. Here's the story, so I can make sure I mention it. And it did involve Tris Speaker, one of the great Cleveland Indians of history. And in the 1920s, he was accused of getting together, the two of them and another player, and tanking games so that they could bet across the boards and make money. And eventually, Ty Cobb, it was all brushed away somehow in life as these things happen, because all that lives on is the 23 seasons of batting 300 and all these other things and all the statistics. So my point is that's just one guy, and you've got tons and tons of these stories. So I can go in that favor for Pete Rose. And then you get to the steroid argument, because Bruce kind of hitting right along the lines of what I'm going to say there in the chat room of, what you said is the same as Barry Bonds and Mark McGwire standing up and going, okay, we admit it. We used steroids and we cheated the game, but what the hell, man? No harm, no foul. Everybody's good. We all made a lot of money. We sold a lot of tickets. But we're admitting it and we're sorry, and we'd like you to still consider us for the Hall of Fame. It doesn't work like that. So that starts to open up that whole thing. But then I can jump in and go, hey, you let these guys trash the record books. You let these guys tarnish the game. But so we're playing God, but we're deciding who we're going to hold what against and who we're not. I say, in that case, you draw the line in the sand and you keep everybody out. You can't pick and choose. If we're keeping guys out, we're keeping them out. If we're saying, whatever, then let them in. I don't agree with that. I say, unfortunately, it is what it is, and Pete Rose is what he is, and he is a guy who will forever be known as one of the great players of the game that lost his legacy. See, think about this. How come people that want Pete Rose in the Hall of Fame can talk about how his legacy, this and that, but it's the same thing if you're an A-Rod fan. Forget me, I don't like him. Maybe you love Alex Rodriguez. So if you do, isn't that the same argument about his legacy that you can make? Well, he still hit 8 million home runs and he batted this and he did that. Yeah, there's a little tarnish on his legacy, but his legacy is huge, you know. So what? He threw that away when he did whatever it is that he did. And so I'm a big believer in that aspect of it. It has nothing to do with a second chance or anything like that, you know. It has to do with it is what it is, man. And it just becomes such a slippery slope because then, as you said, people jump in and go, well, why not? And nobody's ever going to win. Nobody can ever win that argument, but it's such a catch-22 because you can truly lay out a whole case for why Pete Rose should still be allowed in, and then you can do what I just did and go in the opposite way, lay out the case against him as well, because at the end of the day, I mean, what he's accused of doing, it's not like he just walked up to the corner and said, hey, give me 50 on my team to win. I mean, he was a professional gambler. Imagine today if Pete Rose happened today. Imagine if David Blatt was discovered to be gambling on every Cavaliers game. You know what I'm saying? And betting on the teams. I mean, could you imagine, I'm just putting it in terms of today's people, could you imagine the scandal that would blow up as people are digging into the betting sheets, which people don't have access to from then, trying to discover, was this guy tanking games? Was he shaving points? Tim Donaghy went to prison for that, for being an official that was part of that, because he was gambling on games and he was affecting the games to win or lose himself or certain people money. So, you know, think about all of those things tied in there too. The fact is, nobody can prove whether or not Pete Rose didn't show up at the ballpark and go, you know what? Because here's the thing. You don't have to tank. You don't have to lose the games on purpose. Let's say that I happen to know that Rob Dibble is my starter or something. I'm just Norm Charlton, somebody like that, because I'm thinking of Reds players from back in the day. But let's just say that that's my starter, and I know that he's got the flu today, and I know that he's under the weather, and he's playing against a team that shelled him the last time they played against him. So I go bet the other team, not because I want my team to lose, but because I know that my pitcher's sick and nobody else knows that. And I just used my advantage to go win some money. And then again, there's just the impropriety in general of gambling, and it involves your team in any way. If it had been another sport, I would totally be like, let Pete Rose back in the game right now. He was betting on basketball games. He was betting on football. Michael Jordan never saw a game he didn't want to bet on, or a golf match he didn't want to gamble on. But there's a difference. Michael Jordan, at least as far as we know, never bet on his own games or his own sport or anything like that. But had he done it, that would have been a completely different story, because Michael Jordan was so good at what he did that he literally could have affected the outcome of things. My point is that Pete Rose was in a position where even if he didn't tank games, he still had knowledge, had the ability to do that. That's scary. Only because if you allow an exception for that, where do the exceptions stop? Because that is bigger. It sounds easy to go, well, he bet on some games. But when you break it down like that, then you go, you know, I mean, he could have, you know, there's a lot of things involved in sports and franchises and all of that. And here this guy is playing fast and loose with the rules. My point is, if you make that exception, then how do you not let Shoeless Joe Jackson in the game? And then how does the next guy not jump up? And then how do these steroid guys go, hey, we'll now put us at the front of the list, and so on and so forth?
Well, the problem is it all comes down to a question of what do we know and what do we not know. I mean, talking about Ty Cobb there, I mean, if that whole thing that you just mentioned about Ty Cobb betting on games, if that really blew up back in the day and people knew that Ty Cobb was gambling on games, then he never would have made it into the Hall of Fame, just like Pete Rose. But, of course, the thing is, he, you know, considering what you said was true, then he did, but yet he is in the Hall of Fame. So it's weird, because when you talk about the history of America and the history of journalism, and you talk about this, you know, we talk about the line between the pre-steroid era and this steroid, and the current steroid era, I guess you should say. But when you talk about, you know, journalism and how much stuff do we learn and how much stuff do we not learn, really you can draw the line at Watergate. Whereas before Watergate, things got covered up. Maybe kids didn't know that Mickey Mantle was out drinking all the time. People definitely didn't know that JFK was running around on his wife. But after Watergate, once everything blew up with Nixon, it went the other way, where you did find out all the scandals and things were not swept under the rug. Everything was exposed because all the journalists out there, and I know I was in journalism school, and they told us what big heroes Woodward and Bernstein were. You know, you wanted to be that kind of journalist, the one who exposed the powerful people who are corrupt and people who are cheating the system. So what makes you wonder is how many people like Ty Cobb or other people from the past did things like gambling or other things that would have kept them out of the Hall of Fame if we had just known about them. So it's almost like if Pete Rose were playing back in the day, he would definitely be in the Hall of Fame simply because maybe we wouldn't have even known he was gambling. So I don't think that you should penalize people simply because they live in a more journalistically exposed era where there's people in the past whose sins may not have been uncovered.
Well, I agree, but that's not the right point there, because actually that situation was the end of both Ty Cobb and Tris Speaker's career, which leads even more to the you guys are not going to be punished, but you're also not going to play in this game anymore. No, basically what you had there was two guys near the end of their career who were not happy with certain things with their teams, who got together with their starting pitcher and decided to place a bet against, it was the Tigers and the Indians, the Detroit Tigers and the Indians. I've got the thing right in front of me here now, so I've got the details. It was September 25th, 1919. Dutch Leonard, a manager of the Tigers by Cobb, it was Ty Cobb and Tris Speaker. They got together and they orchestrated a Detroit Tigers victory after betting for it with some gamblers behind the scenes. The pitcher provided proof in letters written by everybody involved agreeing to the deal, because you got to realize this is 1919. Everything was in telegrams and letters, and everything was written communication back then. There were no other forms of communication yet at that point. So letters that had been written where this thing was spelled out. Kennesaw Mountain Landis was the baseball commissioner. Of course, he was hired because of the Black Sox scandal in 1919. Remember, he came in and suspended everybody and all of that and took over baseball. He held the hearings, and then basically the one player who had all the evidence decided not to show up for the hearing. So what they did was basically dismiss the case, and also it was the under the table, we're not going to play anymore, and that was it. There was a attempted comeback for a half a season by Ty Cobb, but he ended up leaving and saying he only came back so that he could quit again on his own. And same thing for Tris Speaker. And so those are two guys that are held up as high. No, I guarantee you, especially when you throw the Speaker aspect of it, a lot of people in Indians history don't even know that. But those are two players that were literally proven to have decided to financially behoove themselves one day by betting on an innocuous regular season game and then tanking the results of the game. That is way more egregious than what Pete Rose did, assuming that he didn't do the same thing, because who knows if he didn't do the same thing.
Right. So I think that pretty much illustrates right there, since Ty Cobb is in the Hall of Fame, and I believe Tris Speaker's in the Hall of Fame.
I mean, think about that.
Like, especially with all the remorse and all the time that Rose has been suspended, I think that now is the time to put him in.
I'll tell you, man. See, I got to go the opposite, man. And maybe it's because of the... And I love him. Like, if we're just talking baseball, I'm with it, man. But...
Oh, yeah.
And if he had been a player betting, like you said, I look at that even differently. When you're the manager, man, that's a little bit different, man. You know, I mean, the player too, but you know, you hear again all the cases of I just watched. I was mentioning it. Those 30 for 30s. Well, the one about the Boston College point shaving scandal. The one with Henry Hill from Goodfellas, and you know how they went in and did that and got the players to shave. Man, that matter of fact, one of those players ended up getting 10 years in prison for his part of that. But all those things, man, and it's so easy. And this is where I don't know what to say. Because it's easy to just go, well, hell, everybody's used steroids now. Everybody's got skeletons in the closet. Let's just let them in. But to me, that's such a terrible precedent, because apply that thinking to anything else in life. apply that thinking to anything else in life. A guy's been in jail for X amount of years for doing something really horrible. He's been in jail for a long time. Let's let him out. He's been. There's worse guys that aren't in jail. So let's let this guy. My point is that's a really randomly general point, but open that theory to anything. Well, what the hell, man? He suffered long enough. If that's the case, but is that the truth? Like, you can't have a felony and run for president, but let's say some really famous politician has a felony. Are we going to say, you know what? It's okay. Let's let him run anyway because he's really sorry for what he did. Unfortunately, the rule that you broke has now had a consequence that you can no longer run for president. You know what I mean? Like, I just believe that you can get second chances and forgiveness and all of that stuff, but forgiveness it's not the same as you just get everything back. You know what I mean? Sometimes you lose things and you can't get them back, and that's why it's called a consequence and not a temporary repercussion.
Well, the one thing is that we haven't really thought about yet is he could certainly be reinstated into baseball, and then it's just a matter of will they vote him into the Hall of Fame. And I'm sure it'll be a very interesting, very healthy debate. I'm sure we'll get all the pros and cons out there. And then, the guys who decide this kind of thing, and, usually they're deciding, well, does Alan Trammell belong in or not? Now they'll have a really pretty big decision to make, and that's what they're not really getting paid to do so. And I think it might be, I'd like to see him get a chance and just see how the vote goes.
You know what? You just hit it. Now, that was where I was going to wrap this conversation up. It's like you and I are right here, man. Same wavelength, because that's the one part of the argument that I agree with the people that want him to be reinstated to the game. I agree with that aspect of it. I do want baseball to reinstate him. Here's why. Because there is nothing stopping the Hall of Fame voters from putting Barry Bonds in if they want. And they obviously don't want to. They don't want McGuire. Right. They don't want Sosa. They don't want Clemens. The voters have spoken with their words and their actions as far as the voting. So, but they have that option. I want to give people exactly what you said, that option. Now, I just laid out all these arguments, plus and minus, for Pete Rose. At the end of the day, I would not vote him into the Hall of Fame because of that reason. But I would reinstate him to baseball, and I would give him that opportunity to go out there and be in the discussion. Let the voters make up their mind, so on and so forth, which way they're going to go. Because I've got a feeling that just like people don't let the steroid guys in, there's going to be enough people to keep Pete Rose out. I just cannot see him getting enough of a majority to get into the Hall of Fame if you put it to a vote. But let him get the vote. Let the voters decide. And if they say, hey, we're letting him in, then all you can do is discuss it and debate it and then see where they go next with it. But I do agree with you there. Reinstate him to the game. Let him do that. Plus, hey, and I'm not saying this will happen because he's 74 and he's higher up there in age, but, a lot of times when, in general, and now Pete Rose is a very special case, but in Hall of Fames, no matter what the sport, a lot of times people are considered borderline candidates, and maybe they do things and add to their resume later, whether it's, obviously he's not going to come in as a manager or anything like that, but you never know. Perhaps over the next few years, if you reinstate him, it allows him to be an ambassador for the game. A team could hire him in different, not saying anybody's going to hire Pete Rose, but what I'm saying is he allows himself to be actually attached to the game again. Maybe he does something. Maybe he writes a new chapter that makes the voters get all mushy and I don't know. But you open up the door and then let the Hall of Fame decide whether he gets in or not. From that aspect, if I'm the commissioner, I would make that decision and say, I'm going to let the chips fall where they may. If you guys decide, go for it. Because by just looking at what they've done so far and how harshly they look at the steroid era and all of that, I cannot see. Can you see him getting, 70+%? Can you see him getting 3/4 of the ballot there to get in? I don't think he does. I think he gets close. I could see Pete Rose being one of those guys that's within 10 votes or something by the time a couple of years goes by. But I could see those last few people being stubborn to the end. Maybe when a new generation of voters comes in, they look at it differently. But I don't think. What do you think? If they put him on the ballot, do you think he would get in?
I kind of don't think he will. I mean, it's one thing if you needed like a 51% majority, but no, you need something like 70, 75%.
75.
I think so. That means there only needs to be 25, 26% of the people to say no, and the answer is no. And I kind of think there's enough people out there, so the answer would be no. Again, I'd like to see him have the chance. If I were him and I was reinstated, I'd be greeting people at the door of the Hall of Fame. I'd be like mopping the floors. I'd be working in the gift shop. I'd be doing any little thing I could to get as much goodwill as possible just to change everybody's mind. Say, hey, I'm working hard. I'm at the Hall of Fame. I'm here in Cooperstown. I'm doing whatever I can. You know, I'm changing the light bulb and the sign to get it done.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I agree with you. I don't think there's a chance in the world that he gets 75%, even if you put him up. And I mean, I think he gets close. Like I'm telling you, the first vote, I could see him get right there. But I think at the end of the day, there's enough hardline, old school people there is to make, is what you said. And I'll jump right on it with you, is unless we're going to ban all the steroid, like if we're going to say, hey, you guys are banned, none of you guys can be in baseball just like Pete Rose, then the decision is made. Nobody can vote because they're not allowed to be voted on. But as long as you're allowed to vote for Barry Bonds, you're allowed to vote for Mark McGwire. If you choose to put Sammy Sosa in the Hall of Fame, you can. If that's the case, then you should be able to choose whether or not you keep Pete Rose out. And then let the decision, go where it is. So that's where I'm at with it. And I got a funny feeling that may be where baseball goes too. Because really, if I'm the commish, that's really an easy sell to the public and to the rest of baseball is I'm not putting him in the Hall of Fame. There is no guarantee that this man is going into the Hall of Fame based on what we're about to do here, because he has still got to pass the hardest hurdle of all. But, as long as you're not... Look, sitting on my shelf right now is a copy of Game of Shadows, which spells out the to the detail, the doping, cheating, deception that Barry Bonds embarked on to attack the baseball record books. I mean, in graphic details with graphs and charts and everything. And this thing is sitting 10 feet away from me. So as long as that guy can be on the ballot with this pile of evidence up against him, then put Pete Rose on the ballot too. Reinstate him to the game and let the chips fall where they may.
Right, because say what you will about Pete Rose, maybe his managerial record, but his playing record is clean. He got those 4,100 and some hits, and so there's no asterisk next to his stats and everything he did on the playing field, the way there is with Bonds and how everything is all screwed up as far as, what records are legit and what aren't. At least his stats on the field are legit. So Rose at least has that going for him when you compare him to guys like Bonds and McGwire.
Absolutely. That's a hell of a point that you absolutely made there, too, is that right there, And if he did get voted in, guess what? For those of you that don't like Pete Rose, it wouldn't exactly he wouldn't avoid the black shroud over him. You think that isn't right there on the plaque, on the display, that's his career. I mean,
oh yeah.
Look how long that black mark's been there. So even if he gets that award, even if he gets that peak of his thing, it's right there with him. I mean, it's not like he's escaping it anywhere else anyway. But yeah, so we're on the same page with that, man. Hey, good conversation today, Jeff, and Indians, as we said, a couple of hours from now, for those of you listening live, Corey Kluber, little opening day preview as he takes the mound today. Then the Tribe has a game off here. What do you got going on? I know you wanted to talk about a couple of things before we go.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to mention, I talked a little bit about the Akron Rubber Ducks last week, and I looked a little bit at their promotional schedule, and there's something that you personally are definitely going to like. They're doing a lot of very interesting bobblehead dolls. They're doing tributes to Cleveland sports heroes. So they're going to have one for Larry Nance. They're going to have one for Michael Dean Perry, and he's going to be there that night. They're going to do a Albert Bell bobble bicep doll. They're going to sell, and there's a couple of things that are really kind of off book. They're going to celebrate the 30th anniversary of the movie The Goonies, and they're going to have a chunk bobble belly truffle shuffle doll.
You know I'm a mark for bobbleheads, man. I love all them goofy bobbleheads. That's why you're doing this to me right now. What else do they got?
Well, I'm building up to the big one. This is the one that's going to make you show up at Canal Park on July 25th. they're going to have a bobblehead doll to celebrate Major League of Pedro Serrano.
Oh yeah, I knew about that. Yeah, of course.
Oh, you did?
There's gonna be a yeah. I love Major League. I'm a mark for anytime I see a headline about any of those things that have to do with that. But this is the anniversary, so you're gonna see a ton of those. I mentioned it a couple weeks ago. The Brewers are doing something cool with that. They've got the premium bobblehead, because that's like the new thing now. You've got the standard bobbleheads, and then now they've got the premium bobbleheads that are animated and they light up and they talk and they do, and usually those are a much more limited selection. I did a thing a couple weeks ago on the show about some of those around baseball, and one of them is the Brewers. They're doing Harry Doyle, and it's a premium bobblehead that does three of his phrases from the movie. I think it's Just a Bit Outside, and two of the other ones way back. So I don't know, whatever. A couple of the other, but it's cool. It's Harry Doyle leaning over the thing, anyway. So yeah, you're gonna see a lot of the Major League themed promotions here, because it's what is it? Is it 25 or 30 years for that? What year did that come out? Was it 89?
89 would make it 25.
Yeah, so it'd be closing in on the 25th anniversary. I think it was early 90 or late 89 or something, but this is a lot of people cashing in off of that there with that, man. And I'll tell you what, Jeff Gorman, you hit me with the spot with the bobbleheads, man. Rubber Ducks always have a lot of cool promotions going on down there.
Oh, yeah. So July 25th is the day you're going to want to be there for that one.
That's right. Pedro Serrano, baby. Absolutely. 1989, Bruce. I knew it was 89 with that there. So, beginning of this season would celebrate 25 baseball seasons since Major League came out. Jeff Gorman, Indians101.com. What are you guys working on this week?
Actually, I just talked already. I sort of came out with an article just recently about the whole starting rotation situation. And then I think next we're going to talk about, if there's any of these young upcoming hitters that might be able to grab a spot on the roster, maybe somebody like Aguilar, or maybe even, who knows, maybe even Lindor, if some guys aren't possibly ready to go to start the season.
Lindor's coming like 4th of July, baby. You mark it down now, man. It'll be fireworks San Francisco weekend, man. That's gonna be right around it. It's gonna be right around the middle of the season there. But yeah, I'm with it. We'll check that out. Indians101.com, you guys. Jeff Gorman's here every Tuesday talking Tribe. He's here on Fridays talking Brown. So we'll get into some Brownie talk this weekend.
Sounds good, man. You have a good weekend. Enjoy your St. Patrick's Day.
You too. My man, Jeff Gorman from Indians101.com. Great conversation, talking some Tribe, talking Pete Rose here. Does he get in? Does he? I don't know about you guys. Hit me up. Let me know what you guys think about that as well, man. I mean, everybody gets into the Hall of Fame argument, and I think the way we ended it, that's the point that everybody forgets, is that's a whole separate argument. You let him in, and then that one's a hurdle that I don't think he'll ever climb anyway. So if that's your only reason for not letting him in, is because of that, well, I don't think you necessarily have to worry about that. And if you do, and 75% of people vote him in, as hard as that is to get into the Hall of Fame, then obviously that's what the baseball gods wanted to happen, and then you just let it happen. So anyways, we're going to take a break, get you some news, come on back, and welcome back the Doctor. Dr. Football in the house. Browns pick up a couple of free agents. Hey, I like what they did yesterday. They definitely grabbed a couple of veteran guys. Those are only stopgaps in free agency. They buy you a year to either draft or have your draft picks work out. I think they did well in that. Now they've got to take care of the backside, which is you've now got a year or two to figure out who to plug in those spots. We'll talk about it, though. Tremont Williams and Randy Starks coming to Cleveland here. We'll talk about that and more around the NFL. Chris Borland quits after one season due to safety concerns. Dr. Football joins us next to talk about it after the news here on the Sports Fix.
The Sports Fix, your choice for intelligent talk.
I'm expecting a very important delivery at the house, so could you please call me if it arrives? I'll give you my cell number. 401-555-1125.
440.
No, I was just repeating the 4. 1-4.
1-4.
Intelligent talk.
Okay, 1125.
1125. 1125.
I'm not giving you quantities of the numbers. I'm giving you the numbers. 1125. Those are the last four numbers.
Oh, I see. 1125.
Yes. All right. Now read the number back to me.
Let me get my pen.
The Sports Fix will be right back.
I'm Tyler Zeller, and you're listening to The Sports Fix.
Today on Save on Taxes, we ask 100 people what costs less than filing your taxes with IRS Free File.
A car seat. Oh, a pair of shoes.
The correct answer is nothing. When you use Free File, you get brand name software, tax prep, e-filing, and help with the new healthcare provisions, all for free.
So, did we win anything?
Everybody wins. freefile.irs.gov. It's fast, it's safe, it's free.
Business owners and professionals, do you want to take your business, your product, your team, your event to the next level? You want to advertise right here with the Sports Fix. Our listeners are among the most loyal listeners, terrestrial or internet. The Sports Fix universe is not only the radio show, but tens of thousands of fans on Facebook and Twitter. Email me, Jerry Myers, thesportsfix@AOL.com. That's thesportsfix@AOL.com. And let me help you swing for the fences and hit it out of the park right here on the Sports Fix.
Whether it's an oil change or a new set of tires, Quick Lane at Valley Ford Truck has you covered for your car care needs. They're your neighborhood quick service experts. They also offer a low price tire guarantee. Choose from 13 brands, and if you find the same tires at a lower price within 30 days, Quick Lane at Valley Ford will refund the difference. 5715 Canal Road, right under the 480 bridge in Valley View. Come see why life is better in the Quick Lane. quicklane.com/Valley Ford Truck.
Portions of the Sports Fix brought to you by Harry Buffalo. Harry Buffalo, join the herd.
News break.
I'm Christine Lisi. Here's what's happening. 49ers linebacker Chris Borland has retired because of concerns over long-term effects of repetitive head trauma. Borland, just 24 years old, was among the NFL's top defensive rookies last season. He told Outside the Lines he made the decision after consulting with family, friends, teammates, and concussion researchers. ESPN 49ers reporter Paul Gutierrez on what might be next for San Francisco.
There's still questions about Navarro Bowman and whether or not he is fully healed from that gruesome knee injury he suffered in January of 2014 in the NFC title game. So beyond needing guys just to fill in the gaps, they need guys that can step in and contribute right away, the same way that Chris Borland did a year ago.
Borland, a third-round pick out of Wisconsin, said he plans to return to school, possibly pursuing a career in sports management. Free agent receiver Stevie Johnson reportedly plans to decide today between the Chargers and Patriots as his next team. Johnson cut last week by the 49ers. Baseball Hall of Famer Mike Schmidt, in a column written for the Associated Press, criticized MLB's rules to speed up the game. He said there's no place in baseball for a time clock.
For over 60 years, Ferguson has been the name that pro contractors count on for plumbing, HVAC, waterworks, and more. They have the right products and the right people right around the corner. Put them to work for you at Ferguson.com.
You're listening to The Sports Fix.
Welcome back to the Sports Fix Live, rolling on in hour two here. J-Rocc back with you. Dr. Football, Bill Chick is going to be with us back on the show after a few weeks absence here. He'll be with us in just a few moments, but we were just talking Tribe prior to the news break there with Jeff Gorman from Indians101.com. Indians announced their first couple of roster moves here for spring training as they're starting to begin the process of getting us ready for opening day. They optioned Cody Anderson, Ryan Merritt, and catcher Tony Walters to Double-A Akron here this morning. They optioned Sean Armstrong, Charles Brewer. Brewer got beat up yesterday. And Giovanni Urshela to Triple-A now. So Urshela officially off the radar there, heading to Triple-A for now. And they reassigned catcher Jake Lowry, Tyler Naquin, Jordan Smith, a couple of outfielders, and Will Roberts to minor league camp. The Indians' Major League Spring Training roster now sits at 52 players here as we've got just under, 3 weeks left to go in this one. But a couple of the names there that were in the conversation anyways settled out there. Cody Anderson, some people thought he may have had a chance to sneak up on some cats here. And Merritt's another guy worth keeping an eye on. A lot of guys in there will come into discussion. Of course, Naquin and Urshela, but a couple of decisions here made early on by the Indians. First ones, really, in spring training. Don't forget Corey Kluber. As soon as we get done here, I'm ready. Watch him taking the mound. Guys, we're going to switch from the baseball field to the football field. Dr. Football, as I said, we've missed him. He's been gone for a couple of weeks. He's back in the house here today. The Browns got to work yesterday, made a couple of signings, filled a few holes that were created by their own vacancies here, and we'll talk about it. Do you think they upgraded or not? And Chris Borland, you heard about it during the news. 1 season and done, says the risk is just too much in the NFL for him to continue. Let's talk about all of that and more. There's been a ton going on around the NFL. Just this morning, by the way, since we got rolling, a couple more signings here I saw going on just in the morning. We'll get into that here in a minute. Let's go to the phones. You guys cannot call, but you can keep the conversation going on Facebook and Twitter, facebook.com/thesportsfix. Tweet with us at The Sports Fix, CLE, or email us, thesportsfix@AOL.com, facebook.com/The Sports Fix. Tweet with us at The Sports Fix, CLE, email us, thesportsfix@AOL.com. I'll tell you what, talk about interesting decisions in free agency as I get ready to pull Dr. Football up here. Look at Vince Wilfork, man, going from the Patriots, and the Patriots had an offer on the table to bring him back and decided to go to the Tennessee Titans there. That's a migration pattern that I necessarily wouldn't have expected a guy to make, especially a veteran guy from the Pats like that. I mean, perhaps there was a huge difference in the guaranteed money of that or whatnot, but that one was interesting to see. Former Brown Trent Richardson, T-Rich, he's going to go to the Oakland Raiders and try to replace Darren McFadden, get himself in the mix there. Stevie Johnson goes to the Chargers here this morning on a deal. And Greg Hardy, talking to the Cowboys, it appears that he may not leave Dallas there. Speaking of not leaving, I don't know where Dwayne Bowe is. I don't think anybody does. He may be on a milk carton by this point. Browns just keeping him locked in a closet. No, I'm just kidding. But they're still pushing hard, and I'm hearing that the odds are looking good. It appears that he may be ready to make that commitment to the Cleveland Browns here. We'll talk about that like a couple of other guys did. Let's get Dr. Football on the phone. He makes that commitment to the Sports Fix, and he's here every Tuesday, back on the show after a couple of week absence. Dr. Football, Bill Checkus, how you doing, my man?
I'm doing okay, J-Rocc. How you doing? It's good to be back.
Fantastic. Good to have you back, man. How you feeling, my friend?
I'm hanging in, and also happy St. Patrick's Day.
Absolutely. To you, too, as well here. And those of you guys, salute out there, celebrating a bit. We're doing it by talking some sports. As I said, Bill, you know, there's a lot to go on. It's a good week to have you back in the fold because there's been a ton of things going on all around football. You know what? Before we even get into the Browns, I kind of want to talk a little bit about this Chris Borland story here coming out of San Francisco, blindsiding the San Francisco 49ers. They're already dealing with the retirement of Patrick Willis, and they've got some changes going on, you know, obviously with Ray McDonald and different things going on there. But now here, this one comes out of nowhere. Chris Borland, a guy who came from Wisconsin, really came on the scene for them, had a strong season at linebacker, young 24-year-old kid, and here makes the decision on ESPN Outside the Lines that he is going to quit the league after just one season due to safety concerns and issues and the risk of the head injuries and the concussions and all of those things we've talked about being too high. He said, I've done all the research, and to be honest, it's just the risk is too high. He said, I honestly want to do what's best for my health and my family, and from what I've researched and personally experienced, I do not think the NFL is worth the risk. And now Borland is probably the definitely the most high-profile active player here, and really a case of, I don't know if anybody else leaving in their prime, like, I mean, right at the beginning of their career and saying, you know what, I see where this is going. What are your thoughts on this story here this morning?
You know, I think there are a lot of guys that are leaning this way now, that are going in this direction now, J-Rocc, and, you know, part of the reason is, again, like he stated, the safety risks. There's too much going on, and there's not enough There's no equipment in the world that can protect you from a serious head injury or a serious spinal injury. And if that isn't enough, what Chris Borland is saying in this press conference. A couple of weeks ago, I met Mike Utley. Okay, people who know their football and know the history of the game, know the story. And Mike told me...
paralyzed. Yeah, it's the thumbs up.
Said,
yeah.
Right. And fortunately, he's made a good life for himself after that. But, not everybody gets the breaks that a guy like Mike Utley got. And he's very, very lucky, he says, that he's had people in his life that care about him and that were able to tell him, hey, there's more to it than, just hitting each other over the head on Sundays. And there's more to life than just that. And obviously, he's decided, Borland's decided that it's sooner rather than later.
For sure, and here I'll read some more of his quote here from the press conference. He said, "I feel as sharp as I ever have. For me, it's more wanting to be proactive than dealing with something that I'm currently with." He said, "My concern is that," and this is so true, if you wait until you have symptoms, it's too late. And that's the thing with the head injuries, is he's exactly right. There's unknowns. You cannot claim that X will not happen. I've had this conversation with a lot of people, and I don't get into the whole, I love football. I absolutely do. Number one, I'm a high contact athlete myself. I get into the physicalness of hitting and being hit and taking falls and all of that. That makes you feel alive if you're an athlete, especially to me, there's a difference between being a contact sport athlete and a different, you have to like a certain type of that. And I get that. And I don't want to take that away, but I relate football to like being a NASCAR driver. You can make it as safe as possible. And 99% of NASCAR drivers will never get in an accident. They will never suffer a serious injury, and they will risk their lives every day and survive. But it's the ones that don't that suffer that's why it's called a risk. And so in football, you can minimize the risks. You can continue to make the equipment safer and all of that. And the majority of players will survive intact for the most part, even though they'll be broken down in a myriad of ways, but they will survive with their faculties intact. But you can't control it, just like a car race. You can't protect it, and all it takes is one shot to change things. So I totally get where he's coming from, and he's got a great point. Bill, I don't know if I've ever told you or if we've ever talked about this, but a lot of people know, especially you guys that listen now, I'm just now doing the whole coming back and doing some wrestling thing and getting myself back in shape. And like I tell you guys, it was 4 years ago next month. It was at the end of April in 2011 was basically when my wrestling career ended. It ended for two reasons. One was work related. I had a new commitment to be the news anchor, and I got the Sports Fix dropped in my lap at the radio station, and they were like, hey man, you're getting beat up on the weekends, and then, blah, blah, blah. It just, for whatever reason, they weren't cool with it. And I get that. Commitments have to be made and contracts signed and all of that stuff. I'm with it, but that wasn't the only reason, because they were willing to let me, do certain things. But I ended up going down to Texas. I went down to Dallas, Texas for a week at the end of April of 2011, and I wrestled in 5 straight days, and I ended up wrestling 13 matches in 5 days by the time I was done. It was a big week long. It was part of a state fair and stuff like that. It was a really cool thing. Anyways, point being is on a Tuesday, I suffered a concussion. I got dropped on my head, and like I said, I wrestled 13 matches in 5 days. So on a Wednesday, I re-injured myself a little bit more, because once you get hit in the head once, then it's a lot easier to catch a second one. Well, then by the time Sunday came, I ended up catching 3 concussions in 5 days, and then made the biggest mistake in the world. Got on an airplane from Dallas and flew to Cleveland without going to the doctors first, in which case they would have told me not to get on the airplane. I completely exasperated my circumstances much worse by flying across the country. And by the time I got to Cleveland, I started experiencing some really blinding headaches, ended up going to the doctor. Long story short, I ended up with post-concussion syndrome. I was diagnosed with 3 concussions in 5 days. My life was actually physically affected for the next 6 months. I had to wear sunglasses at work. I had to minimize. I almost lost my job because I couldn't work with computers as much. And if you're in the audio business, there's a ton of, that's all you're doing is working with computers. And I suffered from effects for 6-8 months before they went away. And that was a big part of me being out of between that and my work not liking it. I said, hey, you don't have to put this on a bright sign to tell me that I need to stop doing this. And the only reason I'm able to come back is because my schedule changed, but also because my health cleared up. But I spend every day knowing, and trust me, there's days after wrestling matches that I sit back and listen to my Monday broadcast to see if my words are slurred, to see if there's anything that I'm noticing, because I know that I'm one shot to the head away from doing damage, and it's something that I can protect. I can limit my risk and limit my exposure, but I'm still taking a risk every time I go out there. But I mean, when I talk about these things, that story that I just told is why I can understand it and appreciate it much more than just the average person. But I don't know if you knew that, but I've front line been there with it, and it's crazy because you literally, you can't train it. I've torn my rotator cuff, and I've worked out and built the muscles up around it and been able to actively move my arm again. You're like, hey, you can build up muscles around tears. You can build up cartilage around broken bones. You can't build up anything around your brain, and when you damage it for life.
Yeah, I was aware that you were on the active side of the business, we should say, before you got behind the microphone. I just didn't know how many injuries you had, but I knew about the 5 matches. I knew about the 13 matches in 5 days, and I knew about the concussions. And you and I have talked about it. I've had a couple of head injuries myself from serving, so as well as other broken bones. So I know exactly where it's at. Different situation, but hey. For the same thing, we could, therefore, by the grace of God, go I. It could easily be one of us in a wheelchair.
Oh, I know. And that's what I mean. That's why I could never go, oh, man, this guy, come on, toughen up. And I do get into that about football. Like, I don't think that you should completely change the game into touch football. I think if that's the case, then we might as well do NASCAR on a bumper course. So we might as well put pads up around the side. And there's some people that may think that's a great idea, too. People that don't get into the risks of NASCAR may go, hey, J-Rocc, you got a great point. You should make it a bumper track so that nobody dies, so that people can watch them drive around in a circle. Same thing here. Nobody should get their brains beat in for other people's entertainment. But I do believe that, like I said with NASCAR, if you're not going to completely take out the risk, which you can't, then, there is a limit there. Like, and that's why I'm the same guy that goes, hey, the guys aren't practicing enough. Because I think there's a difference. I'm not asking you to let guys practice without helmets and tackle them in the parking lot. I think they should be allowed to run more laps, and they should be allowed to run more gassers and stuff like that. Things that will wear you out and make you puke and make you physically tougher, but not take 8,000 shots to the head every day for the case of being a tough guy, So when I say they're sissifying the game, those are the things that I refer to. But at the end of the day, you're choosing to take that risk. So I don't hold the game responsible, but more people will have to do what Chris Borland did, which is not easy to do, and say, you know what? I'm not hurt now, but I know that I can be, and it's just not worth the risk.
By the same token, he's still at an age in his life where he could turn around and switch into another career, whether it be sports management or sports medicine or even broadcasting. He has time in his life where he could turn it around. Maybe he won't make the same money, obviously, that he would have made as a professional player, but he still has the opportunity to have a career that involves something with the game.
Absolutely. And you know what? Think about this. Look at the last week now. Chris Borland is just the latest in a group of guys. Jake Locker, somebody we talked about a few weeks ago, thinking, this may be a guy the Browns may bring in and talk to about their quarterback position. He quit the game at 26. Patrick Willis, he just quit the game. He's a little bit older. Jason Wuerlitz, he's 27, and he left the game of football. That is a new trend here of these young, under 30. Like you said, having the front end and being able to go, you know what? If I switch gears now, I can easily move into something else. And I've got plenty of time to, like you said, be a sports management guy, go be an agent, go be this, go do that, whatever. But you're starting to see that now for the first time around the league. I saw Brandon Marshall even tweeted about it yesterday. He said, wait a minute, do these guys know something that we don't? And that's going to be a conversation, exactly what you and I are talking about right now, that players are going to talk about amongst themselves, because nobody ever wants to be the first guy to do anything. A lot of, trend centers are called that for a reason. And once one or two people make that leap, all of a sudden other guys go, hey, wait a minute, maybe he's right. I never thought about doing that before, because I didn't think you could just walk away. And then you call Chris Borland and you talk to him and you go, hey, well, I don't know what your decision is, but here's why I made my decision. And I think that you may see this as the tip of the iceberg to a whole bunch more players. I'm not saying the whole league is going to quit, but I think this may trickle down and you'll see a few more directly because of this. And they'll attribute it to Chris Borland or someone going, hey, you know what? It got me to thinking, and I decided to do the same thing.
Yeah, and probably out of this most interesting group of moves in the last day or so is the non-move. Colt McCoy staying with the Redskins, J-Rocc. I was very surprised.
Oh yeah, switching off of that and going into the free agency stuff. Of all the free agent moves, I don't know that was the most surprising one that I would have started with. But yeah, I did notice the word come out of there here. Was it just this morning? I think I saw that they're going to keep their quarterback battle together here. Let's talk about some of that stuff going on around free agency, and I want to start with the Browns, Bill. Let's look at the Cleveland Browns. Yesterday, for those of you guys, I mentioned it at the beginning, for those of you just tuning in with us here, J-Rocc, Dr. Football, talking about the NFL and free agency. Browns agreed to terms yesterday. They were on the verge with Tramon Williams when we went off the air. They signed that contract yesterday. Williams comes in 3 years, $21 million here, I believe. I think about 14 of that is guaranteed or so, but that's starter money. He's definitely going to come in and at least compete, if not just be walking into the I think your starting corners for the Browns next year are Williams and Joe Hayden, with Justin Gilbert and Pierre Desir fighting with Kwan Williams for all the backup snaps there. And I think I said this yesterday about Williams. I think he's a good 1 year stopgap. I do believe he's on the back end of his career. I believe he's lost a step or two, but he's got another year, maybe two, but I don't think so. I think he's got at least another year of being at least as on the same level as Buster Skrine, who you just lost. So you're at least going to stay status quo for 1 year. Now, the Browns have basically given themselves a bye for 1 year to go out here and find another cornerback. It's either going to be Gilbert or Desir, or you'll draft somebody else or whatever. But they basically bought themselves a good 1 year stopgap to replace Buster Skrine, so that's okay. Same thing with Randy Starks. They bring in Starks from the Dolphins. He's a good interior defensive lineman. The Browns are probably about to lose Ataba Rubin anyway, so you add him into that mix up front. That'll be a good run stopper, I think, and that'll help at least replace the loss of Rubin and mitigate the loss of your own guy there. And Dwayne Bowe, as we mentioned, is rumored to be about to finally let the Browns off of his doorstop here. They're not leaving until he signs this contract. But that one as well would be three guys in the last couple of days. But Starks is in, Williams is in. If nothing else, it stems the flow of guys going out. And it does. I will say, the Browns are no worse at cornerback with Williams than they were with Skrine. And I would probably say the same thing on the defensive line as well. Starks is about an equal swap out, maybe even a slight upgrade over Ataba Rubin. And you know what? It's funny because LG mentioned it yesterday that the defensive side of the ball will be much easier for the Browns to get people to come here, of course, because they look and they go, hey, okay, I can see where I fit in this defense. And the defense is actually pretty attractive. It's the offense that is the trouble getting guys in. But what are your thoughts on Tramon Williams and Randy Starks and their addition here to the Browns?
I can't disagree with you, Jerry. I think those are good moves. It keeps the defense, especially the defensive secondary, shored up. You've got enough guys in there. You've got a body of guys that you can rotate through if somebody's injured. Again, to borrow the quote from Bruce Arians and the Cardinals, you can work the next man up theory for a little bit here. Okay, I don't know who else you're going to acquire between now and the draft. I think at this point, defensively, I may just sit back and see what happens, in the draft at this point.
Well, you know what? Here's my thought about that: is if they do finish the job here as far as Dwayne Bowe, and again, from what I'm hearing, that is definitely closer to happening than not now. At first, it was a little bit of a cat and mouse game, and I don't know how interested Bowe was, but between his visit, between hearing whatever it is that the Browns laid out for him, and the fact that there is a little bit of a tie-in. I believe who is it? Is it Dansby? I believe they have the same agent, or maybe Dante Whitner, but there's one or two players on the Browns that share a similar agent as well that have been part of trying to swing that to happening. But my thought is with the veterans, and you know what? Notice this. It's one thing I will notice about Ray Farmer is that he understands the best use of free agency as far as filling holes with veterans. And what I mean is that the previous Browns regimes never believed in that. They never went and got average or slightly above average veterans in their upper 30s or whatever to fill gaps for 1 year. They would always say, well, we're building for the future. We don't want to bring in these older guys. But Ray Farmer knows that those guys are and I'm just saying, they're the difference of 1 or 2 wins in a season. They're the difference between winning 3 games or 5 games or 6 games, or you know what I mean? Or if you're a 6-win team, it might win you 8 games. And those little things matter when you're trying to keep your job. It has nothing to do with building for the future, but that's why those things matter. And at least this regime is willing to go get free agents to make up for their mistakes in the draft. I will say that. They don't go get the ones you want. They don't go get the high-priced ones, but they do understand that because really Joe Banner wouldn't have touched a 32-year-old Tremont Williams, wouldn't have touched a 31-year-old Randy Starks, would have never brought those guys in, and at least, if nothing else, you're just covering your tracks. But my thought is with those guys in Bowe, if you sign those 3, what you've done is you've allowed yourself to go into the draft and not draft for need anymore because you now have Hartline and Bowe added into your wide receivers. Of course, you're still going to draft a wide receiver, but it doesn't have to be Amari Cooper anymore. It doesn't have to be the first wide receiver on the board. It could be a different one, or it doesn't have to be a cornerback, or it doesn't. You now have flexibility in the draft to go after the most attractive guy in the most attractive order because you know that you're not sitting at wide receiver with Andrew Hawkins and Taylor Gabriel as your top 2 guys. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. And just as it makes sense that, the Raiders, bag Richardson, Greg Hardy,
I don't know about that.
Cowboys right now. No, it does. It makes sense.
Kyle, I know what you're saying.
They don't have to invest a whole lot of energy into him. If he doesn't work out, it's one and done, and he'll move on somewhere else, or he'll move out of the league, wherever. I find the possibility of Greg Hardy being in Dallas more interesting because there's a guy where you really have some concerns. Are you not taking too much of a risk with a guy like him? And that's what you have to say. If you're the general manager, if you're the personnel director, you have to look at each one of these moves and you have to say how much risk is associated with this deal.
You know what? You just brought that up. That's a good one, Hardy, because some Browns fans and I had gotten into it over the last few weeks because there's some guys that only care about talent and not character that say Hardy is. And I'll agree, if we're only going talent, he's one of the best free agents out there for a team to get. But there's way more involved in that. I find that Cowboys situation very intriguing, Bill, because, man, you're not going to be hidden away in the Carolinas anymore. You're not going to be in a smaller market, in a smaller media play. You know what I mean? You're not going to be hidden away in the NFL. You're going to be in Dallas. You're going to be in a megaplex, metroplex.
That's
right. A huge area, a huge media mega capital. And that's different. And they'll be digging at skeletons. There'll be something goes wrong there. It'll be a much bigger deal. But I'm telling you, man, the details of that guy's thing, I know everybody deserves second chances. I'm not being that guy. I'm not sitting here going draconian on a guy who made one mistake. You read the details of what that cat did, and that is the kind of guy that is a ticking time bomb. Forget the NFL. To be in our society, period, you go, man, I'm scared to know that people like that could be living next door. I'm just saying. I'm not, because I'm a little bit more of used to the jungle. But in general, man, if you'd read the details, I guarantee you, Tom and Joe Smith next door are going, "Hey, that guy lives in our neighborhood, man." Because I'm just saying. I don't know too many people who have loaded their couch with assault rifles and then practiced body slamming their woman on these said assault rifles a few times, and committed attempted murder and various felonies, and then gotten away with it because they decided to write a big fat check. There's a lot of people have, man. There's, a lot of people get away with stuff. They're called rich people. They're called politicians. There's a lot of different categories that get away with stuff like that. And Greg Hardy falls into it. I had no interest in him coming to Cleveland, and I think him being in Dallas could be interesting. And as we've seen, it's not like some crazy bad things haven't happened surrounding and involving the Dallas Cowboys over the last couple of decades. Players behind the scenes, players getting into trouble. You know what I mean? It's an atmosphere, or it has been over the years. Josh Brent, a lot of stuff.
Like everybody else. I figured you'd be like everybody else. He'd be like everybody else in Texas. He'd have a closet full of, he'd have a gun safe in his closet.
Well, absolutely. Hey, they'll welcome him home with open arms there, man. It's a welcome home. I got no problem with people having guns. Don't get me wrong, man. But, Bill, if you were slamming Mrs. Dr. Football on a pile of AK-47s, I'd have a problem with that, too, man. I'd say, what's wrong with you, Bill?
I'm not saying that's right by any stretch of the imagination.
I'm having fun with you. Dr. Football joining us here on the Sports Fix. Yeah, go ahead, Bill.
Everybody, Jerry, everybody's got to have a couple of raised eyebrows at Tim Tebow getting a workup by the Philadelphia Eagles.
You know what? Let me ask you about that, man. Let me, because I mentioned at the beginning of the show. Yeah, was it yesterday? Larry called. My man LG. He's a Tim Tebow guy for years, but he mentioned him the other day out of the blue, and I said, man, okay, a couple years ago, because I'm one of those guys that believes. Say what you want if you don't like it. I believe Tim Tebow was better than people gave him credit for. And really, I do. I believe that his personal, I don't want to say his personal beliefs, but his lack of fear of letting you know his religious beliefs, that I really love people like that just don't care whether it's cool, whether it's what you want to hear. They're going to tell you what they believe, and they don't back down. Because I believe if you hide from who you are, you're a hypocrite. And there's so many people that go, well, I don't like to talk about that in public. I used to be like that on the show. Well, I don't talk about politics or religion or opinions because it's just, no, the hell with that. Here's what I believe, and if you believe differently, let's talk about it. But none of that hiding because I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings stuff, And does that make sense? But anyways, I believe that some of that stuff hurt Tim Tebow's career. I truly do. I mean, his football play did too. But I think that had he turned less people off, I just think he would have got more opportunity. Anyways, I was giving him credit at the beginning of the show because Chip Kelly, if maybe you and I see nothing in Tim Tebow, Chip Kelly saw something worth at least taking a look. And I said, well, it does show that he's very open-minded at looking at any and all possibilities to do things that maybe nobody else is looking at. That's what you got to do in sports, in the NFL in general. I'm not saying that the decision is right, but you've got to do the things that nobody else is thinking of doing, and that is obviously one.
Yeah, and I still think there's a possibility that he will have a job somewhere in football, maybe not on the field. Maybe it continues to be in broadcasting. Maybe it becomes a personnel position. Who knows? But I don't think the Tim Tebow story has been. I don't think we've had the final period written yet.
No, I don't either. By the way, Chip Kelly, man, look at what he is doing since he's grabbed. Everybody thought, wow, he's made this power grab here, and he's really set himself out on a ledge. But he did put himself on a ledge, but he's obviously not afraid of it, and he's going to work. I mean, look at the one move after another. He is truly attacking what he wants. He's identified the kind of players he wants, and he's gone out there and got them. I mean, shopping out. I mean, really. You think about it, and this is what I mean by being a bold guy, and I got to qualify this by saying I didn't want Chip Kelly when everybody was chasing him down. I was worried about that gimmicky offense, but thinking outside the box, forget the offense part of it, is not a lot of people, and be honest, if you guys tell me you would, then I'm pretty sure you're lying here, but not a lot of people, if you were in charge of the Philadelphia Eagles this offseason and you looked at your roster, you would have seen LaShawn McCoy. And not a lot of people would have said, hey, I've got to get rid of this top-of-the-league running back and replace him with this top-of-the-league running back. Like, the way that evolved, that's identifying your guys and going, man, I've got a great, great player here, but it doesn't fit, and this player does. And, I mean, that's a risk. I mean, hell, anybody could have sat back. He could have made all the changes he makes and brought back McCoy, and nobody would have thought differently. But you make that move, and people go, man, he traded out LaShawn McCoy for DeMarco Murray. You know, I mean, that's taking risks, identifying what you want, and going for it. Same thing with that Foles for Bradford trade. Nobody saw it coming, and that's what I mean. Nobody sees these moves coming that Chip Kelly's been pulling off. That shows me that he's not doing what anybody else does. He's not following the popular wisdom. He's just rebuilding his roster the way he sees fit. But, man, I thought McCoy and then bringing in Murray, it's a bold, bold move for Chip Kelly.
Yeah, and by the same token, you know, he's doing some things in that division that obviously the Cowboys, the Redskins, and the Giants are not willing to risk doing. You know, of course, the Giants gave Coughlin an extension one more year, so he's not on a lame-duck contract again, but still, that's only one more year after this year. And, again, you've got to produce. The NFC East is the toughest division in the world. You got to produce.
I mean, I look at basically, to sum it up, what Chip Kelly did. He basically traded LaShawn McCoy for Kiko Alonso and Maxwell, the cornerback that they bring in, and then signed DeMarco Murray. So, I mean, it's an interesting way of looking, because that's what you got to do when you go to make moves. Everybody tries to play fantasy general manager and see, how can I fleece the next guy and get rid of the bottom guy on my roster and get the top guy on yours. Chip Kelly attacked it the way you have to. You only get value, true value, for trading out value, you know, unless you catch a team in a desperate situation. So he said, hey, I've got a very valuable piece here. How can I maximize it? And if I move it out, how can I replace it? Bing, my phone rings. Hey, DeMarco, the leading rusher, wants to come play here. Hey, maybe we can make this thing work. And he brought Matthews in too. Think about that. For that, some people going, oh, well, why would you sign both of those guys? And you've got Darren Sproles there as well. I say, man, do you see the pace of that offense and the number of plays that Chip Kelly likes to run? Now he can pound you with DeMarco Murray on first down or second down, and then bring in Matthews or bring in Sproles, and he could literally, I know you don't want to rotate them evenly, but boy, you've got some mixes and matches to throw in there. When guy gets tired, he takes a down off, the next guy steps in, and you don't miss a beat. I see what he's doing.
Yeah, and I just want to throw it out there before anybody asks me. I'm not so sure that Adrian Peterson will be with the Cardinals so quickly. You know, everybody thinks that Arians would be nuts to not make that move, but you know, you look at Peterson's numbers, there's no way the Cardinals are going to pay him what he was making in Minnesota. It's just not going to happen.
Is that the latest word that you're hearing down there? I haven't heard that so much. As I don't know what the status is as far as Peterson right now.
Yeah, they would like to talk to him, but obviously they're not going to offer that kind of money, and he's not going to play he's not going to play for too much less than what he was getting in Minnesota. So they'll have to come to some kind of agreement, because they worked very hard to get Larry Fitzgerald's contract under control. So there's no way they'd add that kind of a salary, $15 million a year for 3 years. It's not going to happen.
And by the way, speaking of that, I'm just curious, you're on that end. What have you heard on your end about what was the potential deal between the Browns and the Cardinals there before Larry Fitzgerald signed? Because we've definitely heard, and I was told literally the day after the season ended that was a A1 target of the Browns, was they were reaching out to try to see if perhaps there couldn't be a sign, extend, and trade deal there to be made with Larry Fitzgerald. They were going to try to go bold instead of hitting the free agent market. They figured they could be much more effective pulling off a trade. Obviously, instead, Larry Fitzgerald came to terms for a long-term deal there with the Cardinals for the contract extension. But what were the terms? What was the talk in there? Do you know anything?
The only thing I heard was, I heard in January they were talking about 2 draft picks and some cash. And first of all, as good as Fitz is, I think that he knows that he's not worth two draft picks, even a high and a middle. He's not going to get 2 picks. You're not going to get 2 picks for him at his age. So, the Cardinals figure that they're better off signing him to a 1-year option extension, and then they go on a 1-year term. If he wants to stay another year, and they want him to stay another year, it'll be a mutual agreement, and he'll stay another year after this coming year.
And you know what's funny?
I don't think you'll see him playing past 2017.
When you mentioned that, because what I had heard was basically the same as you, except I had heard that there was at least a first round. One of those picks was in the first round range there for the Browns, and that's where I go, come on now. Look, I'm all about Larry Fitzgerald, all about it, but not at that. I mean, I get it that he's still got some gas in the tank, but when you're talking about giving up first-round draft picks, here's another one. And I got into some back and forths with a couple of Browns fans over the last few weeks. I don't know if you guys have heard at home, but those ridiculous rumors that surfaced about a week and a half ago about the Browns and the New Orleans Saints talking about a trade for Drew Brees, which would see the Browns send not 1, but 2 first-round draft picks to the New Orleans Saints for a 36-year-old on his way to the Hall of Fame quarterback. And I had some Browns fans telling me that I was crazy for not wanting to bring Drew Brees into the fold right now. I'm like, look, I understand that the average Cleveland Browns fan doesn't appreciate the value of a first-round draft pick because they usually bring you Trent Richardson and Brandon Whedon. But there's no way in the world that I would trade not 1 but 2 first-round draft picks or even a first and a second for Drew Brees right now, because he's great in that system, in that dome, in that offense. He's at the end of his career. First off, if you bring him to Cleveland, he'll get murdered if the offensive line falls apart like it did last year. Secondly, even if he comes here and he's Drew Brees for a year or 2, that's it. That's it. And then he's done. And you just traded away 2 first-round picks, should be starters / Pro Bowl type guys for 5 to 10 years. You just gave away 2 of those for a 1 or 2 year rental at best at quarterback. And I had fans I could not understand the arguments. I'm like, are you seriously telling me that the Browns are stupid? You can tell me that they're dumb for making a lot of moves that they make or don't make, but you can't tell me that the Browns are stupid for not mortgaging their future to bring in a 36-year-old Drew Brees.
Sounds like the deal that the Broncos made to get Craig Morton away from the Giants.
Right. Wow, that's an old school trade right there. But yes, exactly. Right. That's a great trade to bring up. I mean, could you imagine the thought process? It's not like I'm sitting here going, oh man, I don't want Drew Brees. He's too good for the Browns. Hell no. If there was an amenable deal to be made, if you said, hey, trade us a second-round draft pick for Drew Brees, I may consider a straight swap, because, okay, that's a second-round draft pick, and if I can get 2 or 3 years out of Drew Brees, I'll take that. But to me, the minute, and it just, I was like, and the venom, I'm telling you, some of the arguments I got into, and I'm just like, hey, calm down, but you're nuts. I'm not saying that disrespectfully, but you are, okay, you're going to call the Browns stupid for certain things and then call them dumb for not doing. This would be the one thing, if the Browns did that, if I woke up tomorrow to the news that the Browns traded 2 first-round draft picks to New Orleans for Drew Brees, that's the day that they need to burn the whole franchise to the ground, because now we're not just making dumb moves, now we're making dumb moves for headlines too. At least the Browns make dumb moves and don't care for headlines right now, because they know that they're not, you know what I mean? And I'm not saying that in a bad way. I'm saying they know at least to lay low key on some of this stuff, man. They're not trumpeting parades down Euclid for Tramon Williams. But, you know, that's my point on that.
Yeah, but it's also March, Jerry. It's not like it's June, like everybody has to be panicking up against the wall because you don't have enough bodies in camp.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. And I'm with that too. That's why I said you finish this with Bowe. Plus I mentioned yesterday, and I don't know if you heard, but with Bowe, and here's why I like him of the available receivers that are left, is that he can also be a hybrid tight end for you. He can be a lot like Jordan Cameron, and he fills that gap because Cameron was a unique tight end. Even though he was hurt 5 games last year, he was still a unique skill set. And with Bowe, you can play him split out, or you could say, you know, let's go 2 tight ends, and we'll have Bowe kind of being a hybrid here, tight end receiver. So I do like it. And again, like I said, now you don't go into the draft with a gun to your head. You don't go into the draft and go, we have to draft a wide receiver first. We have to draft this guy second. Now you just go into the draft and you take the guy at the top of your board as each one of your picks comes up. So I hope they can get that deal done there. But I just wanted your thoughts on that Drew Brees thing, because trust me, in no way am I not saying the Browns couldn't use Drew Brees. Of course they could, all day and twice on Sunday, literally twice on Sunday. But they definitely couldn't afford to mortgage the future for a 36-year-old Hall of Famer, literally like 5 years from now. He quits now, he's in the Hall of Fame in 5 years. I give you that, but it doesn't mean that you give away. But see, that's why I say Browns fans don't value first-round draft picks, right? Because they're used to going, well, half of these don't work out anyway, so we can afford to give it away, you know? But anyways, we'll see, man. I don't know. What's your biggest, of the things maybe that we didn't talk about today, what's your biggest surprise free agent signing? Because, man, the face of, and let me ask you, before you answer that question, is it just me? My theory on this is I've said it feels like the face of the league has kind of changed in free agency because so many players have changed in the first 2 weeks of it. And I was telling somebody my theory is that it's no different than any other year, but society is more educated to the NFL and to the names of the players, 54 guys deep on a roster, than they ever used to be before. So now all of these names are familiar. When you hear in the news that this guy, that guy, this guy, they all sound, you go, oh, that guy signed with the Colts. That guy signed. And I think it was always the same amount of free agent activity for the most part, but more anonymity amongst the players because not everybody knew who the front defensive line for every team was. Whereas now football fans are so much more educated to the names of these guys that it seems like more name players are changing teams when really I think fans just recognize more players in the NFL.
Yeah, I was definitely surprised that the Chargers came to terms with Stevie Johnson. That's definitely, that's definitely an area they need to shore up their talent. No question about it. The Chargers want to, they want to swing things around. They want to be a force in that division. The only way to do that is to go out and make deals.
Oh yeah, for sure. But what do you think? You've covered the league for a long, long time, way longer than I have. And am I wrong? Has there been more activity? Have more big name players switch teams to start free agency, or is it just there's more coverage, there's more media, there's more name recognition, so people it seems that way? Or is there really more movement here than usual?
I think there is more movement than usual, but I also think that there's better knowledge now about who's who and what's what, and who's moving around. It's not like it was even 3 years ago. It's really the technology in news reporting allows people to keep ahead, and it allows I don't want to say the average fan, but it allows the studious fan in front of their computer to know all the moves almost as quickly as they happen.
You know, exactly. Like, I was shocked, not shocked, but like yesterday with Starks coming, and I almost called him James Starks, the running back. But with him, how many people instantly, as we're talking, oh yeah, man, from the Dolphins, because they now know who the third and fourth defensive lineman is on the Miami Dolphins, whereas back in the day, nobody went that deep. You know, it was different. So I'm with you, man. It's been, and here's the fun part about it is when the season hits, it's gonna be a dramatically shifted looking NFL with so many named players in different places. Next year is going to be, I think it's going to be a very interesting and a very fun season as a football fan with so many players switching teams.
I think so.
Dr. Football, Bill Chekis, my man, thank you so much for being with us and being back after a couple of weeks. Anything else before we roll out?
No, I just, it's good to be back, and I'll see you next week.
You got it, my man. Dr. Football. How's things coming, by the way, on the book? I know you said final edits are done here with the Life of a Draftnik. How are things progressing?
I'm waiting to hear now from the publicity people when we can start planning some book signings.
Sounds good, man. You got any idea on a release date yet?
Yeah, we're talking about sometime late September, early October.
On the early part of the football season. All right. Well, we're definitely going to talk some more about that here. Bill, enjoy your week. Feel good, and I look forward to hopefully talking to you again next week.
Yep.
We got to start doing the draft stuff, baby. That's your deal. We got to start getting into the draft.
And you guys in the chat room, behave yourselves. The good stuff is coming.
All right. Dr. Football, my man, you have a good one. We'll catch up next week.
All right. You too, man. Be good.
You got it. That's the doctor. He's out of the house. House call is over. Bill Chekis. He's with us every Tuesday talking football and 30 years covering the draft, 30 years of a Draftnik. His book coming out here, and we'll start talking some of that stuff as we start getting into draft season soon enough. Right now, free agency in full swing. Let's take a break. Final break of the day. Come back, wrap things up, set the stage for tomorrow. We've got, of course, March Madness begins. The first play-in game tonight. Just about an hour and 45 minutes from now, the Cluebot takes the mound, which is always a good afternoon way to watch some Indians baseball. Monsters wrapping things up in Texas and more. Don't go anywhere. Final segment of The Fix coming up next.
When it comes to Cleveland sports, we go from
"You can't touch this"
to
"I can't watch this."
So listen to The Fix. It's easier on the eyes.
Guys, want to take just a second as we head into this break and remind you about the official business printing source of the Sports Fix, our friends at Signs and Ship. Signs and Ship, I'm telling you, Chris and Pam, they've taken care of me since day one, and they can do the same for you. Whether you're a small business that's already been established and you're looking to grow to that next level and expand your business, or perhaps you've got an idea that you just know is going to be a great business and you need to figure out how to brand it and how to promote it and put it out there, Signs and Ship is the place for you. If you need a logo, they can create one for you. They have a fantastic graphic designer. Business cards, signs, banners, yard signs, mobile advertising, anything you can think of that you need to promote your business, they've got it at Signs and Ship. The best thing about them, too, is each of their locations, whether it's the home base here in Elyria, Ohio that I work with, or their spots in Virginia, Florida, and Pennsylvania, it's all local sourced. Very important to me because we all understand that small business is the lifeblood of the community. So check them out, signsandship.com, or call Chris and Pam today, 440-323-6060, the home office in Elyria, Ohio. Signs and Ship, quality printing at affordable prices.
Portions of the Sports Fix brought to you by Fantasy Jocks. Looking to upgrade your league trophy? Check out FantasyJocks.com for championship belts, rings, trophies, and more. Fantasy sports lovers, you put so much time, hard work, and effort into playing week to week that it quickly stops being a fantasy and starts getting real. Real time spent making real decisions, creating real victory.
I'm the greatest man in the world!
And when the smoke clears, you want to show off those victories with a real prize.
I mean, a really real prize.
Nobody does that like Fantasy Jocks. The crew over at Fantasy Jocks have beautiful, high-quality, and heavy-duty championship belts, rings, trophies, and so much more for all your fantasy sports needs.
The trophy's 12 feet high, and it is glorious!
Football, baseball, hoops, you name it, they have it. Plus, they have awesome draft kits and party supplies to make all your preseason activities the envy of everyone. If your league needs a ring, belt, or trophy, or you want to upgrade what you already have, there's literally only one place to go. If you're going to be a fantasy jock, do it right.
It's mine, the most magnificent belt ever created, and it's mine.
With America's fantasy sports superstore, fantasyjocks.com.
What's your fantasy?
Sports Fix listeners, like us on Facebook today. Facebook.com/The Sports Fix.
Hey, everybody. Listen up.
Listen up, guys.
Hey, guys, listen up.
No one should ever hit a woman.
Not their wife, not their girlfriend, not their date. No woman should have to fear violence.
Especially not from someone they know and trust.
But that's the reality for too many women.
We have to change it.
It's up to each of us, because even one is too many.
Violence against women hurts all of us. Growing up, I was ashamed and afraid of my father when he abused my mom.
The worst abuse of power is when a man raises his hand to hurt a woman. We all have to take responsibility. So if you see someone threatening a woman, step up, speak out, and get help.
Dating violence hurts all of us. So step up and help end it. Because one is too many.
One is too many.
One is too many.
One is too many.
End the violence. Because it's wrong.
Because one is too many.
It's freak ass today. But we've been talking about all the teams that have made a lot of moves and teams that haven't made moves at all. And you look at the Bengals and what they've been able to do. They've made some moves, but the irony is that they've mostly made it with their own personnel. They re-signed all their key targets. Borland was a key target. They got
what the hell that was. Computer just started talking to me. I couldn't find it. I'm like closing windows. I'm like, I don't even know where this is coming from. But one of them started talking back to me, man. I don't know. Welcome back to the Sports Fix. J-Rocc back here wrapping it up, you guys, getting set to head into, we're coming into Wednesday already, into the middle part of the week tomorrow. Dan Wismar from the Cleveland Fans going to be back in the house, and we'll preview. We'll talk a lot more about Ohio State as they prepare for the VCU Rams in the first round of the NCAA tournament. Will there even be a next thing to preview for the Buckeyes? I feel one and done coming for those guys, and definitely first weekend and done. But that's what makes it March Madness. You never know. Hey, look, 6 weeks from now, we could be going, hey, how about that Buckeye run through March Madness, So who knows, man? Nobody exactly saw 3 quarterbacks leading the Buckeyes to the national championship this year either. That's what makes March Madness so fun. Speaking of, not only does it begin today at 6:40 as the first play-in game today starts, but also don't forget, get in while you can. The ESPN Tournament Challenge. Go to it and sign up for our group, The Sports Fix. Get in our bracket challenge. We've got a Cleveland Sports Prize Pack coming to the winner of this thing. No cost to get in. It's a lot of fun. You can join fellow listeners of the show. Get in on it. It's very simple. Go to ESPN.com, go to their tournament challenge, and find our group, The Sports Fix, and make sure you register your bracket into our group. It's cool because if you already play on ESPN, if you're filling out one of those $1 billion brackets or whatever it is that they do every year, all you have to do is enter enter that exact same bracket into our group. So make sure you do that. There'll be a prize pack. You can get into it all the way up until the first game on Thursday. Hampton and Manhattan will be the first two teams kicking off March Madness tonight at 6:40. A pair of teams battling to be a number 16 seed here, and to find out if they can go after the that vaunted being the first team to knock off a number one here. Actually, Hampton is only the 24th team in history to make the NCAA tournament with a losing record after they ended up winning their conference tournament and the automatic NCAA berth. They went 16-17 on the season. However, in the past 3 seasons, 2 times a sub 500 team has won their first game of the tournament. So keep that in mind. It doesn't mean that it's already done but the dancing there for them. Kentucky awaits the winner of this one. So that's about as far as I'm going to go with my preview, because at least one of them gets to win once before they battle Kentucky. And then tomorrow the other one is BYU and Mississippi as the battle to become the number 11 seed over there. Then the madness begins in full swing on Thursday. Hampton and Manhattan battle to take on the Wildcats tonight at 6:40. Let the madness begin. Lake Erie Monsters madness wrapping up in Texas. They've got the final game of the Texas Road Swing here as they take on the Texas Stars. They started this 4-game swing against the Stars. They dropped a 6-4 game the other night. They battled San Antonio twice over the weekend and split those. They definitely need to grab some points here tonight as they head back to Cleveland if they can, because the Monsters were in tenuous but control their own destiny position last weekend. This past week has done a little bit of damage to the Monsters' playoff hopes, as now they're playing from behind for sure, and they need to grab some points here because Texas and San Antonio both in between the Monsters in the playoffs, and both put a few more points this week in between the teams. Monsters have to stem that here. Waiting to hear from Doug Plagans when they get back to get back from Texas. We'll get Doug Plagans back in on the show, and we'll talk about the latest week. We'll talk about that Texas trip and more with Doug Plagans. Lake Erie Monsters in action tonight is a 7:30 puck drop here locally in the Eastern time zone. Now, I'll tell you what, not only March Madness rolling on for everybody else, tomorrow the Vikings are getting their tournament going too. Of course, it's not the one you want to be in. It's the College Invitational Tournament, but the CIT. But we'll talk about it tomorrow as the Vikings will tip off tomorrow night their first game as well. The CollegeInsider.com tournament, Cleveland State, Western Michigan. Now, that should be a good game, most definitely, as I said. And these two teams have hardly ever played each other. It's been about 3 decades since the Vikings have played Western Michigan. But we'll talk about that tomorrow as well. Corey Kluber getting ready to take the mound here just about an hour and a half from now. For those of you listening to us live, get a chance to see the Indians opening day starter continue to get himself ready for the opening game of the season. So there's some stuff to get into. Cavs are off after getting back from the Florida trip. Tomorrow they return to the Q. We'll preview that tomorrow. Dan Wismar in the house with us as well. We'll look ahead, talk some Buckeyes, talk some Browns free agency. Maybe Dwayne Bowe comes in the house here. We'll talk about that if it does happen. We've got a lot to do. Let's see, the day off for the Indians tomorrow will give us a chance to evaluate the spring so far. Dan and I will talk a little bit about that as well. We'll talk about the Monsters game tonight, get you set for some Vikings hoops and some Cavs hoops and all of that, baby. So come on back. You know how we do it. Same bat time, same bat channel, live at noon tomorrow, right here across the Sports Fix Radio Network. Hey, guys, have some fun tonight, whether you're watching the little bit of hoops action that kicks it off tonight, gets your palate a little wet for March Madness. You enjoy that Indians game this afternoon, of course. Whatever you do it and be back here tomorrow, guys. We love you, and we'll see you to talk about it all. Dan Wismar's in the house and more tomorrow live right here on the Sports Fix.
Just a mistake on the lake to you, but this is my own. Tatted it on my arm, that I represent that. Homie, I'm from Cleveland, I will tell the president that. Hardest, yeah, we been there. Made some of the greats here. Midwest best, this is MGK's, yeah. Shouts out to St. Clair, Uptown, yes, y'all. Heading to the flex, get it popping up with Steph Flaws. Whole state monster, this the home of King James. We are not the empire, but this is where the kings play. Cleveland, let's go.
We rep our city. Blue lights separate the ground from the gritty. We're sick fitted. Hood pass cover any city that we visit.
Welcome to the Cleveland show. But this ain't no call.